Eriwo ya. Eriwo ya. Eriwo ya. Ayakpo, ayato, ayache, ayamu. Omeriwo simpe. Ìbà Olódùmarè. Ọba àti rere kí ayé ìbà tí ojú ọba tí òórùn balẹ̀ ogé òfin kò yé rí ìbà wúmìlà ilẹ̀ ìpín ìbà pàwúmìlà tí kò tún ìbà fún ìkò sí ìbà kọ́dà ìbà ṣẹ́dá ìbà ọba àrìṣà nífẹ̀ẹ́ ìbà ńlájẹ̀lú nífẹ̀ẹ́ ìbà ọba lórin nífẹ̀ẹ́ ìbà lóye fẹ̀sù ìbórí mi ìlú òní àdìgbà ìbà ìfapàmílà ìbà olùṣọ́lá akérèdọ́lù ìbà arabalọ kífẹ́ ìbà yahujú ẹ̀yẹ ìbà gúngún ìbà bàbá ìbà yeye ìbà olófin ògúnfún nílé ìbà bọ̀pọ̀ àwọ̀ ìbà òtìpọ̀ náà ìbà ọmọ Duduwa. Ọ̀rúnmìlà dákun dábò pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́. Ọ̀rúnmìlà dákun dábò pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́. Lọ́tún lọ́sí àríra gúúsù àṣewárí pẹ̀lẹ́ àtọ̀gòrókùn. Ifá tí mi wáyé lé o wáyé lé o wáyé lẹ̀. Akínyànsọ́ akínyànkùn ọ̀sẹ̀ tèrè ní wọ́n pọ̀ bí lóde kẹtù. Àjàláwẹ̀ ní wọ́n pọ̀ bí lóde ìláwẹ̀. Wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ tí wá wọ́n ní ọtí ọ̀fìn po wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ ẹmú wá wọ́n ní ẹmú náà ní ọṣẹ́ o wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmú omi tútù wá wọ́n ní ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi ló ìfín ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi tó ire o ti fa fún kòlógbò tí ó tẹnu ìbíǹpìrè. Ẹbọ ní oníkó wa ṣe ọ̀bẹ̀pọ̀ orúkọ oníkòlógbò tẹnu wúre o kòlógbò kí o wúre tàjé kí o ré tàyá kí o ré tọ̀mọ́ kí o ré tèrè pọ́pọ́ kí o mú tàìkú kí o fi pẹ̀lú re kòlógbò tẹnu wúre o àṣẹ lé o àṣẹ wá. Ọ̀sàṣe òbíṣe òtẹ̀sẹ̀ bòrónkò odò dìfà fún onílé ẹtí omi èyí tọ́lá yọ máa rọ gẹ́gẹ́ bí fà tí ń rọ bàbálà kọpẹ́ kọ̀jìnà àṣẹ o àṣẹ wá àṣewálé o àṣewálé o ṣe lè pèpèpèpèpèpèpè àṣewárí ilé o. Ẹ̀rí ọ̀pá kọjá ọ̀fẹ́ ọ̀tọ̀ sí ọ̀pá kan sí ń pa ìwọ fa tó pa tàpátàpá kọ́ ní ọ̀sìn olówó rẹ̀ mọ́ ti fa fún bọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀kan lẹ́yìn wọ́ ìmúlẹ̀ ń lọ rẹ́ fara sọ̀fà lọ́dọ̀ọ̀run ẹ̀rọ̀pọ̀ ẹ̀rọ̀fà ọ̀run kíya ẹni lọ fà kára mú ọ̀rọ̀ yẹ ẹ̀jẹ̀ àṣẹ o àṣewárí pẹ̀lẹ́ o àṣẹ pẹ̀lẹ́ o ẹwà pẹ̀lẹ́ àtọ̀kùrùkùn Ifá tí mi wáyé lé o wáyé lé o wáyé lẹ̀ èrè mi o èrè wá. Àfin lọ fi gbogbo ara ẹwu ara ní owó náà wò ọ̀pẹ̀pà ọ̀sàlájà tí a fún ẹ̀ ní tí sọmọ oríṣọ̀pọ̀ wújì èyí tí yóò tẹ̀ ọ̀ là tẹ̀ ọ̀ lọ́jà lọ́wújọ́ ẹ̀rá ẹ̀bùn ní kò wá ṣe ọ̀bẹ̀pọ̀ orúkọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ òrìṣà tẹ̀mí lọ́sọ̀rọ̀ òrìṣà tẹ̀mí lọ́sọ̀rọ̀ tẹ̀mí ẹ̀bọ̀ ọba ọ̀pọ̀ kò sí ọ̀hún yóò nù òrìṣà tẹ̀mí lọ́sọ̀rọ̀ àṣẹ o àṣewárí pẹ̀lẹ́ o àṣewáyé kankan àṣẹ o. Àpọ́n bí akọ akọ bí akọ àpọ̀npọ̀npọ̀npọ̀n àkọ́kọ́ alẹ́ kọ̀kọ̀ọ̀kọ̀ níkọ̀kọ̀lẹ̀pọ̀ àkọ́ta àpàtó fílé rẹ̀sílé tó fílé nílẹ̀ kí ọ̀nà pẹ́ àkọ́ kúnlẹ̀ o hu àpọ̀tọ̀ kúnlẹ̀ ọ̀ṣẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́ kúnlẹ̀ ọ̀kọ́ àpọ̀tọ̀ kúnlẹ̀ ọba àṣẹ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́ aṣọ òpẹ́lẹ́ àkọ́rẹ́ lé mi dáadáa sípàdà yégèrè sípà dífàfọ̀ ní ìlàjà gún wọn ni kan. Tífà fún òní nàájà gún ọmọ rẹ kan pẹ̀rí owó jẹ ọmọ orí tí ń sunkún àtẹ ọmọ bẹ̀bẹ̀ tí sunkún ògùn mi kan lẹ́sìn wọ́n ti ràn kìlì títí gbẹ̀nì kò dédé tí òun lọ́kọ̀ mọ̀ ọba òmìnira ṣòwò kí ni màá rere àjẹjẹ nígbà ní pé náà ayá kí òmìnira ṣòwò kí ni màá rere ayá nígbà ní pé náà ayá kí òmìnira ṣòwò kí ni màá rere ọmọ mi nígbà ní pé náà ilé kí òmìnira ṣòwò Kenioma, Rere, Ile, Bunny. Bena, Shin, Tiba, Umila, Show, Finima, Rere, Eshin, Lao. Ma kun shao. I won't be a chico about Nifa. Eshin Lao. Ma kun shao. I say low. I say wale. I say wa. Aboye. Abo shisho. Akwa to a sort of good wofum. How are you? This is Baba Poison Way. If I caught it, if I died. Oh, been a minute. Definitely like, subscribe, share, and follow. It's been busy. That's primarily why I haven't been on. I've been busy, which is a good thing, right? So it made me kind of think about that in a lot of ways. Understanding IFA. I think it's an important thing to say. I do it because generally we want to kind of assume things are flowing in a certain way, or you get things flowing. I say specifically, thank you. I appreciate all the likes. Like, subscribe, follow, share. Appreciate it. So understanding IFA. What I mean by that specifically is understanding IFA when going for IFA divination. Right? Now, I touched on it before, but I want to make sure that I get on that for real. Because it's important to understand why and where and how we actually go forward in this life when we think about understanding the things in our life or in our pathway or in the things we seek to accomplish in our life. Right? So what does it mean when we say IFA? I've gone through it similarly, but I want to go through it in a deeper way now just because I want to kind of see where people are specifically, and then questions that people have, right? Because when you are talking about questions about IFA, I want to make sure that people have a good understanding of what IFA actually is when you're coming for a divination, right? So what are the things to understand when you get there? What kinds of things do you actually focus on when you're going through that pathway? Oh, wait a minute, I'm talking about it. And that is important to say because when going for a divination, you want to make sure that you understand all those things that are encountered in it. So, for example, and I want to say this 100% because it's very important, right? That when we're dealing with IFA, there is always a bow, right? When you're dealing with IFA, there are always things that you have to really think about before you step foot within that realm. Am I willing to finish what I begin, right? And so when we talk about going in and seeing how things are flourishing and flowing in our life, and when do we ask or when do we seek out a reading? When's the best time to seek those things out? And I would say the best time to seek it out is when you're seeking clarity in your life, right? Because seeking clarity is very important. So when we say we're seeking clarity in something, we want to see, what are the things in my life that give me insight, right? What are the things are kind of pushing me out of the way of the things that I seek to do in this life, right? So when the good rule of thumb is always to say and know when somebody says, we go to our own Ori wisdom before we go to Ifa. And when you do that, that opens the doorway in so many different directions. Because first and foremost, our own Ori wisdom is important to respect. What is Ori, you say? So for a very basic understanding of Ori, it is your soul, your fate, your destiny. So it's not your Ori, it's not your subconscious, it's not your brain, it's not your mind. It is your direct connection to Olodumare. So in this pantheon, when we say Olodumare is Almighty God. Okay? So it's really important to understand, why do we go for Ifa reading? Why is that important? What's the point of that? Why do we go into those kinds of things if we're seeking to gain a better understanding of our lives, of the things we seek to accomplish in our lives? What is it that we seek actually to accomplish, right? So that is one thing that I want to begin to speak about, because most people don't really think about, maybe they're used to doing, and I said this before, but tarot cards, or um, maybe they're used to doing pendulums or anything like that, right? Those things are not, repeat, not tools of IFA. Okay, 12:12 on the clock. Yeah. Oh, it's 10:12 here. Uh, but yeah, so say no less. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. Um, so that's what we really want to make sure that we have a good understanding of why we're doing the things that we do. Because we want to have clarity when you go there. It has been a minute. I've been busy. Oh, Nelly. So anybody that haven't necessarily reached out to on a regular for a while, that's why I've been busy. So when I'm busy with IFA, I kind of pull back from here and get things accomplished, whether it be EBO, whether it be, um, if I'm doing readings or putting together herbs and things for that, like in that matter of getting things accomplished. So that's why I want to come on and just understanding IFA. So again, I want to make sure that people understand what I mean by that. When I say understanding IFA, understanding why you're coming to get an IFA reading, understanding why it's important to get an IFA reading, and to not just do the reading or the divination, which is the same thing. IFA reading, IFA divination, same exact thing. Is to complete it, and once you complete it, then think about this in this level when you are seeking that to learn with that Babalawo that you've gotten that divination with. It's always also important for you to reach out, because it is you who are seeking to make under a deeper understanding of your spirituality, of your purpose, of your place, of the things that you seek to accomplish in your life, right? So it's important for you to make that reach out. So the Babalawo, as a courtesy, will call sometimes and ask and see how you're doing and things like that, but that's not compulsory, right? I do that just because I like to make sure that everything is cool with the person and things are flowing. But get busy. Know that Babalawo will get busy. That you are not the only client that Babalawo has. So it's important to also understand that as well. Because it is really important to when you're asking questions, and that's why I record it. When I divine for somebody, I record it so that they can have access to that, and them only to have access to that, and me, just so that if they ever need it again, I always can send it to them again. But having a good understanding of what it is that it means when it means to go for a reading or a divination for IFA is important, because first, why are you going there? What's the purpose of you stepping foot in that pathway? What are you seeking to accomplish? What do you really want to know? Do you actually really want to have a clear understanding of the things of your surroundings, or you just want somebody to tell you what you want to hear? Okay? Because if I would do just that, it would tell you exactly the things that need to be dealt with immediately, especially IFA Bigba. I am a Babalawo a la Bigba, for those that don't know. I am a Babalawo a la Bigba, meaning I use the tool of Abigba. And is the odor thereof of a lot of the other IFA tools, but it is an IFA tool. So why do we go for IFA divination? Because this IFA divination is going to set things in motion. It's going to open up the doorway. It's going to aid you to have a deeper understanding of your purpose, place, and destiny. And then, or, you may sometimes go to IFA for specific reasons like, should I marry this person? Important decisions in life, or, should I go, is this a good business venture? Or is this a good, sickness, concerning something dealing with sickness, or something that you want balance in, or what is my purpose? So there's many different ways and many different things. Those are just examples of why a person comes to IFA, right? And then how often should you go? That's a question that people ask on a regular basis. How often should you go for IFA reading? And I say you should go for a divination. It's really up to you, truthfully. I can say, oh, come to me every month. That's great. And that would be great, But understand that if you got a divination a week ago, there's no really necessarily for you to come to another divination a week later, because unless it's something specific that you want to address, right? Something that may have come up, something that came through, but it's understanding why you're coming. So when you come for a divination, you want to make sure that that divination is not something that you've already received or understood of. Maybe you have an ebo that's going on, and you want clarity. So you already have an ebo that you've done. So if you already done an ebo within that week, then there's no need for you to do another divination, right? Or if you got a divination and you did the ebo, and now you're like, you want to get another opinion, let the ebo work. I say that all the time because people get so anxious and thinking this is tarot cards or psychic reading or whatever, and it's not that. Hate to interrupt you. I have a health concern I wanted to ask you about. Okay, what's going on? What's going on? Ask away. Okay. Okay. Breeze. Okay. I see you coming up. I'm gonna let you.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing? Hold on, let me turn this up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, this is much easier than texting. Okay, so I acquired some injuries to my prefrontal cortex. Like I still have a bump on my forehead 2 weeks later. And some cervical spine compression. Right. I'm just kind of like I've been taking magnesium and potassium.
So, quick question. Have you been to the hospital at all?
Yes. So the CT scan showed some degeneration, right? It's a difficult word, and but there was like no fractures or anything that they could see at that time, even from the head damage, which is good. But I do believe it ended up swelling a little bit or something, like where it's compressed in the disc affects the heart rate, blood sugar, the C6, C7, somewhere around in there, in the cervix, right? In the cervical. So like my blood pressure, like I basically stroked out the other day.
Okay. That's a question that we should address offline, though. Oh, something happened. So the reason why I said that's a question, that's a question that we should address offline because it starts to get into a personal nature. I don't like to give people stuff out there like that. So go
Right.
ahead, text me and we can connect it. But there are things that we can deal with specifically dealing with the head and dealing with inflammation. There are things that we can definitely deal with. Any kind of like you said, there's no fractures. That's good. Any
Right, but there is some bone spurs. I do have arthritis and some known bone spurs in that area that I was like not even trying to deal with the inflammation so that it wasn't like moving towards the disc or anything. Just stay swole where you're at. It's kind of messed up to work it like that, but I don't know. It made sense to me. Right.
it don't work like that. So you start working on certain things, and then inflammation is gonna have to be dealt with. 'Cause that's what's gonna help
Oh
with
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I got a cervical stretcher pillow looking thing so that to take the pressure off, but because I'm like in pain in so many different places.
There are herbs that I have specifically for externally, like a salve that I make that's really good for injuries and bruises, and it also helps internally. Um, there's a few herbs from Nigeria that I put in there, and then there's other things that actually get in and help with like any kind of like inflammation and things like that too. So definitely text me about that. We can go into that part of it,
Sure.
and
Okay.
then um, there's other things internally. But again, I don't want to put your business out there. I don't like to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You
So
know,
you were asking. So you were asking about like the that you would go to your Ori Uno,
right
right?
now, what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah. To go back to that, since we're saving that for later.
so understanding E5. So the reason the topic today is understanding E5. So I always shorten it at the topic just because um, it's easy for me to just say that and then for me to get into actually a conversation, right? So understanding E5, what I mean by that is understanding why you're going to E5, understanding the processes that you may go through as when you get a divination, understanding the maybe nuances and things that you may have um, in the process, in things that like knowing that there's always an ebo, knowing that there are certain nuances in odus and things like that. So that's why um, a babalao that is not the one that's divining for you should never give you advice on the odu that you got from someone else because that's just disrespectful, right? So understanding those etiquettes and things like that. So I'm just talking about understanding E5 in general. That's the topic. So that's what I was going into. Because I just really popped up.
Right.
Um,
I thought I heard you say something about the you always want to go to your Ori Uno, your Ori first to your soul to and it's I kind of perceive that as to kind of check in with your connection, and then the verification of your connection is verified with the E5.
so yep. So
Kind of
I
like
would say, well, what I'm talking about when I say go to Ori first, they're talking about go to Ori first before similar to what you're saying though. Go to Ori first because that's what the in Yoruba they say go to Ori first before you go to Ifa, right? Because your Ori knows everything that is that you're going to do and see, but if you don't have you're looking you're kind of still confused after doing that, then you go to Ifa because Ifa will give you clarity, directness, especially with Abigba, it will give you abundance of clarity. And so that's what I was saying too. That when people go to Ifa Abigba or any Ifa for any Ifa divination in general, um, to always make sure that you have clear understanding and that knowing that this is not that Babalawo or Yanifa speaking their personal opinion, and it shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to try to decipher somebody's opinion from what Ifa is saying. It is specifically Ifa speaking when you go for Ifa divination, right? And I think that's important to understand because most people will, oh, he just saying that because he wants me to. No, 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 no. So first, you should have vetted that Babalawo before you got to divination, and second, when they're speaking, they're not talking from their own intelligence. They're talking from Ifa first and foremost. There are always Babalaos with gifts. Everybody on this planet has gifts, but Ifa speaks greater. So even that Babalao won't speak past Ifa, right? It is Ifa that has all the knowledge because it's a great body of wisdom. And that's what mainly we're talking about today. Because it's important to really go down that route and really think about why. Why are you getting the divination? Like I said, there's many different reasons why people come to Ifa. But the most important thing is to understand that once you come to Ifa, that you have to respect that process, A, and be complete what you open. Because if you're not completing what you open, then primarily you're wasting time. You're wasting your time and the Babalao's time. Because going for Ifa divination, I don't want, and then I just don't want to take people's money, right? So if you're coming for a divination, that's one thing. You pay for the divination, and then now the EPO is compulsory because you have to complete what you open, you begin. And I think that's important in a lot of ways, because if you don't, then that's when you run into issues. And so, can you blame that Babalawo if you didn't complete what you opened up? No, because you didn't do the work that was told you do. If you're not, adhering to those taboos that were told to you in that divination, then also you have to think about that as well, because the taboos are there for a specific reason. Again, Ifa is speaking these things inside of the Odus that come up. So specifically within Ifa Bigva, there are 4 Odus plus the surrounding Odus, underlying Odus that are there. But there are 4 primary Odus. And so...
So Odu is like a principal?
Come again?
Odu is like a principal?
No. Odu, so what Odu primarily is not just a principle, it is a deeper understanding of the wisdom, or the great body of wisdom of Olodumare. That's a great way to put it that way. Because it is Ifa is the word of Olodumare, and Ifa digs down to the core of the issue. So when the Odu, they are like signatures that bring forth the wisdom of Ifa. So that's why I say, when somebody's coming, if they're coming for, doesn't matter if they say Ifa reading or Ifa divination, same thing. And when that person is coming there, if somebody's pulling out a pendulum on you and they're calling it Ifa, there's no way you can get an Odu from a pendulum. There's no way you can get an Odu from tarot cards. It's impossible, because there's nothing there there's no signature that comes up, right? So when you're using other tools of the Yoruba tradition, right?
Like a life force? Like a signature?
What do you
saying
mean?
it has no signature, like the tarot cards or a pendulum,
Right, a
right?
pendulum, no, a pendulum and tarot cards cannot come up with Odu.
Which is like life force, right? Or am I seeing that incorrectly? Again.
Odu,
Mm-hmm.
Odu is the signature of Ifa. So there's signatures of Ifa that come up. Within those signatures, there are verses that speak about things that are coming forth for that person directly. And so that's why I said a pendulum cannot bring forth Odu. So that would not be an Ifa divination. And so when somebody, because there's a lot of things out there, people have, Orisha tarot cards, or, such and such, but those things are gimmicks. That is not Ifa. Because there's always Odu and there's always Ebo anytime you come to Ifa divination. And that's important to realize, because when you come to Ifa, you're coming there for a specific reason. You're coming to have a greater understanding. So it's not just the information. Now it's also the work that needs to be done to put it into balance, or to clear the pathway so that these things can manifest. Right? So that's why when coming to an Ifa, coming for an Ifa divination, it's good to be, clear. But sometimes when you're clear, well, when you come for it, that it doesn't matter if you, so when you don't have, you have multiple questions, for example. Because sometimes you say, well, what is there a specific question that you have, or do you want it to be a general reading? That's how I address it. So a specific question, like I said, those things that I spoke about earlier, or just, one specific question that you want to gain clarity on. But if you have multiple questions and you can't really pinpoint one way or the other, then it's probably good to get just a general reading, so that you can get you're going to get over. IFA is going to open up all these things. But if you have a specific question, then when we go into it, that's what I will be concentrating on, is the information in that Odu that pertains to those things, that the question that you spoke of. But obviously I'm going to speak of everything else as well in that Odu, but I'm going to concentrate on that question if you just wanted to know one specific question. And then I'm going to go into those Odus that come up in Ifa. So that's where that is really important. It's important. It's important to have clarity, because usually when we seek to have clarity about what we do, then we're not confused on what it means and how it functions and what to expect. Because when you've never had an IFA reading before and you come forth, there are a lot of unanswered questions. So wait a minute, I paid you for the divination. Why are you, now that we've done the divination, why are you asking me money for Ebo? Because that is the process of IFA. Because we ask IFA first, what is it that that IFA charges for that Ebo? Right? So because it's, again, every Babalawo comes from a different lineage, so they may have been taught in a different way. But as I've been taught and as I've seen, we always ask Ifa, how much is this Ebo going to cost? Or this offering that we have to give in accordance with the things that came up in this Odu. Okay? And that's really important because if you don't know and if you never experienced Ifa divination, then you're thinking somebody's trying to get over, and they're not. They're not trying to get over because that is part of the process of Ifa. Now, if you're used to getting astrology or tarot or psychic readings or pendulum readings or whatever other kind of modality or spiritual system, not knocking them, just saying that within Ifa divination, there's always Ebo. And that Ebo is always determined by Ifa. In my lineage, how I've been taught. So we always ask Ifa. Always ask Ifa for specific things. You always ask, so what I speak about, everything comes up in the first throw. So you may be used to saying Ibi anyway. When you have clarity, it makes you feel, think, and move different. Exactly. Clarity is fruitful, right? So that's why even when I come to, when somebody says, "Okay, Baba, I want a Ifa divination done," then I send out directly after that, after them saying that, there's on here, then I say DM me, and then I can send you this breakdown of what to expect with an Ifa reading. Please read that because that breaks it all the way down. So that breaks up most of the questions. You know how sometimes you go online, there's frequently asked questions. That's what that's based off of. Over the years that I've been practicing and divining for people, these are the things that I've come to see, that questions that people have asked. So that's why I break that down in that way, in that order, so that you have a good understanding of what it is that you're seeking to accomplish when coming for an Ifa reading. Right? And that's important to understand because, again, you don't want to go into anything without clarity. And it's important to go down that road clearly so that there is no misunderstanding in what it is that you seek to accomplish. And that's important. Guys, please come in if you want to ask a question. Go ahead and ask a question. So anybody can come in and chime in. So again, for folks who just came in or anybody that's up, say no less. If you have any questions about understanding Ifa, right? Based off of what I said and based off of what was being said earlier. Because it's good to, someone's coming up. Communist gorilla.
Well, you basically broke it down. You know, you get it for clarity. It gives you clarity, but it also gives you things to do and clear up to make it even more clear for the clarity. Bow comes in because you're giving thanks and honor for the journey that you've taken, that they helped you. Right.
Yeah,
Kind of like that.
because it's important.
Excuse me.
It's important to really think about those things in that way, because when we think about it in that way, um, then for me, I say it like this. The reason why I say it like that is because I always want to make sure that people have a good understanding of what they're getting into and why they're doing things in a certain way. That's why I break it down like that. That's why I record it, and then that recording goes directly to, I send that recording directly to the person who comes and gets that E5 reading. And then I also make sure that there's a breakdown before they even get to the divination. This is what you have come to expect, because there are a lot of 419s or scammers that are out there. And so, do I chase down people for IFA divinations? I do not. Right? I come on forums like this and talk about IFA, uh, or I send out different stories or things that may speak about IFA one way or the other. But I'm not going to call anybody unless they inquire to me. And if they're on the live, then I go back in. Thank you for coming in for the live. Thank you for da 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 da. Because you made a choice to come in here. Just like that choice. When somebody says, I want a divination, I saw this Babalao, and now I'm going to pursue him and ask him what X, Y, and Z is. What's my next step? How do I do that? Right?
And that was the
And so
one thing I left out was that the respect in the what's not the word I'm looking for, not edification, but edification at the same time, but kind of like oh Lord, what you know what I'm trying to say, the etiquette. There you go. And that's the one part I had kind of left out of the whole thing. Is the etiquette part of it, the respect, and it's we're not obligated to anything that we're given outside of you know what I'm saying, what we were born with. And so yeah, I get it. I appreciate it. I miss your lives. Uh, I've been busy, but in a whole another way, type of busy, and I've been kind of taking a break because I'm forced to. I can't even think straight because the type of I'm talking about. I still got a nice little knot. 2 weeks later,
oh wow.
yeah, yeah. It was
That's great.
yeah. It went nice. It was that nice, but I don't remember or feel nothing. And I'm alive.
Right. That may be a good thing.
Right. Right.
So let me get to so
Sure.
wanted to get to you real quick. Hold on, did I open it up? Hold on. Come on up. Did you want to comment?
Bro. Yeah,
Okay.
how you
So
doing today, bro?
do you know what the topic is today? Did you get here?
Yeah, about Antifa, right? I mean, the religion,
Yeah. So
IFA.
IFA, IFA. So
Yeah,
understanding IFA. That is the topic of the day. Understanding. So what I mean by understanding IFA is understanding the process of getting an IFA divination, and also understanding what is the criteria and the etiquette and all that kind of stuff like that. Do you have any questions or comments on that?
yeah. You can hear me?
Hello.
You can hear me?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, you can hear me.
In my game, what do you mean?
You gotta unmute me.
I'm a Babala ala Bigba.
He was asking if you had read them already, so therefore he just came in. I'm assuming, right, into the live, so he probably missed all of the good stuff on,
Oh, okay.
the yeah.
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear
Okay.
you. Mhm. No, no, no. You shouldn't be muted. I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more, like about IFA and how it correlates with the healing process, right?
Go ahead.
How do IFA correlates with how our body naturally heals itself. Can you break down the correlation in that for me?
Okay, so there is IFA divination that someone comes to a diviner and seeks insight to something, right? But then there's other aspects of the tradition, of the Yoruba tradition, that deals with like the Onishegun, the healer, the healer society, right? Also, it is within Ifa that sees certain things that are connected to specifically like um, there may be a taboo of no, don't eat peanuts, right? Because there's something going on in your system at that particular time. So a person comes, and that specific Odu that comes up, that signature that comes up from Ifa, that gives you insight into what's going on specifically with you at that particular time. Then with Abigba, Ifa Abigba, it's like 16 days, 16 months, 16 years. So it goes 16 days, 16 months, 16 years in the past, and in the future, and then the things that are physically going on now, right? That's why it's really important to, when you get it, to really understand those nuances of what's going on. Okay, so I'm here, I'm getting a divination. What does that mean? What am I getting? What kind of things do I seek to accomplish? Or what kind of things are there for me to accomplish? Or what obstacles are in my pathway, right? And so it may come up with taboos for food taboos. It may come up with things that for different characteristics that you have to work on within yourself. It may come up with many different things. It may say that not to get angry because there's certain things that are coming that it will block all of your blessings or destroy the things that are in a good way. All the blessings that you have coming will be destroyed by anger, right? It all depends on what comes up in that Odu. But those things obviously correlate to the Ori. Sometimes you have to go to your Ori and propitiate your Ori Inu, which is your soul, your fate, your destiny. So it correlates to many things in the body, into the characteristics of who you are, psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in many different aspects of yourself. Because Ifa is a great body of wisdom, so it holds this great understanding of many things. So to answer your question, so there is no devil in any African tradition. That's first and foremost. There's no such thing as a devil in the African tradition, right? That's a Christian deity. And then when we think of that's a good question because that's a common question too, right? Um, and so when we think of African traditions as well, specifically coming from, so I say the Yoruba tradition of Ifa in the context of West Africa or Africa in general, because Ifa is in many different places other than just in Nigeria. Um, I was initiated personally in Nigeria, but there are, you can go to the Dahomey. There's many different avenues and types of lineages that are in on the continent. So that being said, there is a god, if you will, in that context of Olodumare. Olodumare is the great quantifier, right? Because Ifa itself is a great body of wisdom, but it is also pure mathematics, because it's binary. Um, and so when we come to things like Almighty God, if you want to say it in that way, that is Olodumare or Eledumare, right? That's who that is. And in any African tradition, there is only one God. And then there's things that physically, for example, when we say Shango, right? Shango was a real life king on earth. And so he became deified because he himself is closely related to Jakuta, right? That element or elemental or Erumale, Jakuta, right? But and so those nuances of any of the elements or medicines or herbs or anything on this planet that exists is an aspect of Olodumare because he's a great quantifier of all existence. not just this world, but many other realms, many other worlds, many other dimensions. So in that case, there is in all African traditions one God, right? Because we're looking at that is a different system. That's a completely different system. Now people like to smash one system on top of another. Like that's what they
Right. Yeah.
some stuff in the
Right.
back.
That's Egyptian. It's Egyptian though that he's speaking of.
Yeah. Yep. That's the netters and things like that. Yep. So you the female symbol. Like again, that's a different tradition. You have to understand that's a different tradition. So so I know that a lot of times in the diaspora things get smashed together, right? But there are different traditions. So that there are female entities definitely that exist in Ifa, in the tradition of the Yoruba people, right? And then there are outside of that, there are the many different there are symbols and symbolisms that are also in existence within the tradition, right? And there's many different lineages. So you can go to the Igbo people and you have Ifa or Afa as they call it, Dibia Afa, because they call instead of them saying Babalawo in the Igbo, they call Dibia, right? So a Dibia Afa is saying the same things as we would say Babalawo, right? Like a Babalao a la Bigba. Because I am a Babalao, Baba Niyawo, or the father in the secrets, the father of the secrets. Um, and so I use the tool of Abigba, right? So Babalao a la Bigba is the Babalao that uses the tool of Abigba. And so the same context of Iya Nifa, Iya means mother, Ni is in Ifa, right? Or in the mysteries, or in the yeah, the mysteries. And so So, for example, if you go to Ghana, right, you have the Ga people who have Ifa as well, or the Ewe people in Togo they have Ifa, right, but they call it Afa. Or you go to uh, Edo, to the Edo people in Benin City, they call it Iha, right? Iha Wega, which would be the same thing as Abiba. So you have many different names that that may seem different, and they are because they're lineages in that way, because there's different lineages that do things slightly different, but the Ifa itself is the same, right? And so the regions and things like that. So there may be things that they do in Igbo land that are slightly different because of it's a different kingdom, but they have Ifa, and so within that Ifa, they break down in the same way. If you go to Dahomey, right, Benin Republic, with the Fon people, you'll have Fa. It is the same Ifa. There'll be certain nuances because they're in a different region, but primarily it is the same Ifa. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it shifts from place to place. Yeah. So that exactly because there is the Yoruba people and then the 16 kingdoms of the Yoruba people, right? So when you go to Ekiti, you're gonna have the Ekiti people that are Yoruba. You're going to have the Ijebu. You're going to have many other things in different areas, right? You're going to have the Igala. You're going to have Ibibio. You're going to have um, the Ga, the Fon, the Edo. You can go on and on and on and on to all these peoples that are there. That's why I don't ever limit it to just in Yoruba land, in Nigeria, because it goes past Nigeria. those fictitious, barriers that we have from country to country, because it's 54 different countries, right? So we go past those barriers, those fictitious barriers, because their kingdoms overlapped, and some of them fought each other for a while, and then they fused back in, right? So when we talk about, for example, Shango's I think mother was Nupwe, and his father was Yoruba in as a, I think he was a Babalao or something like that. I forget, but he was in a rural lineage in Yoruba land. So it's good to study too, because then you start to see how people move, and you see the connection between different places and spaces. Yeah, and any question, no doubt, no doubt. But so Vudun, when you think about Vudun itself has Ifa. It's called Afa. It's called Afa. Yep. And so when you talk about Vudun is Ifa. It has Ifa within it. Oh, so they call Ifa Afa. Yep. Afa is what they call Vudun in Vudun. Right. So when you go to Benin Republic, when you go to so a lot of those same peoples, it's a misnomer in saying, oh, when they came to the diaspora, they couldn't speak each other's language. Not so much, right? Because their people traded and interacted with each other on a consistent basis, right? So when you have the Igbo, we just said that they have Ifa, right, with the Dibia Afa, and so when you have the Ekiti or the Ife or the Oyo or you go on and on and on and on, they were interconnecting consistently because people were trading and intermixing with people all the time and moving, you know. So that's where the misnomer comes in. Huh? It all depends on where they were. Because again, so you're talking about so when we speak of Igbo people, right? The Igbo people were related through Orishanla or Obatala, right? Which was the figurehead in Ileife, right? So that was like, so again, because when he got conquered by Oduduwa, where did he go? He went to the Igbo people. He didn't go there because it was just some random people. He went there because it was family, because he knew them, and he gained reinforcements, and he went back and reconquered his kingdom. You see what I mean? So a lot of these things that are misnomers in a lot of ways. When we say, "Oh, we didn't speak the same language, that's why we always fought," not true. That's not true, because we had literally Ifa within a lot of these traditions that people connected to and built with and dealt with, right? And plus, these fictitious borders weren't there, so we have to first think about getting rid of those borders that don't really exist. Only during colonial times as these borders existed. But you got, well, think about what that means in a lot of sense, in a greater sense rather. Um, so these are not really their kingdoms because they're still protectorates. They're still um, like neo-colonialism still exist. So yeah, because that's why when people say, "Oh, why are they still arguing and fighting in the Congo?" Well, who destabilized the Congo? Belgium, amongst many other ones, right? French, and everything else. But when they did that, King Leopold, yep, King Leopold II, for rubber and stuff. Exactly. And so that's what. So when you start looking at that, who did they put in power once they made that transition? Do you think they put people that they could not control in power? No, of course not. They put. That's why. So when you say why is so much civil war, because there are a lot of things that happen on the continent where there are NPOs and NGOs and all kind of different little politics and politics that happen on the continent that people are getting used and abused all the time, and they are still under neo-colonialism, right? And so you have a lot of things that go on in these countries that, oh, why are they still? They should just get their stuff together. But they've been destabilized, and so they have the colonizers still have their foot on their neck because through all of these organizations and all of these other things that do not allow them to build anything. It's in the when they gained their independence, you know, they told them that they could not do X, Y, and Z, but only they can give their resources to me, to such and such, and they broke it down. You see what I mean? So it's not so easy. It's not so easy saying, "Oh, we're just going to give up uh, this colonial name," because that's what they're doing. That's what's going on in Africa right now. Right? What's going on in Africa right now, with in Burkina Faso and many other places and spaces? Say, look, we need to unite, have one currency, have one thing that's going on the continent right now. Because that's why Burkina Faso was like, check this out. You're going to pay me market value for the resources that I have. And so people think, oh, these are rebels. These are people doing that. No, 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 no. They're saying these things because they're saying, look, you're not going to come in and just rape us anymore and take our minerals. You're going to have to pay us market value, right? Exactly. 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 Yep. Exactly. And it makes a difference. You know, it makes a, I, I put it to you like this, right? When it comes to Christianity or Islam or a lot of these other traditions in Nigeria, right? I'll just go from Nigeria for right now, right? For example, so in Nigeria, there are a lot of things that's going on that people don't even talk about that's going on because that's also being suppressed, right? People being having issues or drama or trauma or things going on in Nigeria right now, right? And then think about this. So in the Yoruba context, because Yoruba people aren't just one dimensional, we just talked about that, right? That they're more than just one people. Um, there's different kingdoms, different things like that. Uh, so when we look at that, though, it's part of the tradition. Ifa is part of the tradition. So even though somebody may say I'm Christian, I was at my first Aluo, the one who initiated me to Ifa, at his compound, and people 2 o'clock in the morning, people would be knocking on his door to get a divination. That was a bishop or some kind of pastor or an imam or whatever. So that it's like they're still dealing with these things traditionally, right? Um, and then the other side of that is there have been so many things that have come into context, and especially if you've lived there. I used to live in Burkina Faso. I used to be there. I went back and forth. I go back and forth to Nigeria and to Ghana, and it's really interesting to see that dynamic, how that really plays out to be, right? Because I remember when I was in Burkina Faso, the first thing that folks would say is that, oh, I'm like 70% traditional and like 20% Christian, 10% Muslim, because there's benefits to being those things, because if there, you can get food, or you can get jobs, you can go to school, or you can go to whatever, right? So there's a lot of different dynamics. It's not so clear cut across the board. You see what I mean? So there's a lot of incursions to things that there are a lot of things that are not as easily straightened out, because we can look at it from the outset and say, well, look, why don't you just kick them out and do X, Y, and Z? Not well. There's a lot of stuff that's intertwined inside the government, and there's a lot of things that are intertwined within this neo-colonial system that's going on in these countries. And then, so if you want to go to school, you got to pay for school. And that's why I'm always telling people here in the States and in the West in general, you are fortunate to have free school, to have free libraries that you can use at any time and research things at any time, right? Um, because those things aren't available in a lot of places. Or if they're there, they are controlled by neo-colonialists, Islamic schools, or Christian schools, or whatever, right? Even now, with the incursion to a lot of um, people coming there. And so when I was in Burkina, you saw people that were there taking things and exploiting people there that were coming from the government of, or the business people coming from Korea or China or whatever. They were coming there and exploiting the space too. Don't get that twisted, because that is also a factor. So what they call like the witches market, which was basically herbalists there when I was in Burkina, and also if you go in Nigeria too, but in Burkina, there's spaces and places where you have traditional herbalists, right? Um, and then you have people that are from other places that are using herbs from that country that are also doing their thing there as well, right? So there, in a lot of places, they're forcing them to learn Mandarin, or forcing them to learn certain things, or putting the infrastructure. So when people think about, oh, but they're building trains, they're building this, they're building that, yeah, so they can get in easily and they can leave easily. So there's a lot of different nuances that if you don't know and you don't study, it looks like one thing from the outset, but on the inset, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah, you're right about that, man. It's 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 the it's the things that's inextricably connected that you don't see, but when you really get into it, you like, wow, man, this is very complex. Yeah,
It's like
because from that, the diaspora, we was miseducated grossly anyway by the public school system. We thought everybody in Africa was swinging from trees. So it this is a source of good information, man. I definitely appreciate all the knowledge and wisdom that you bestowed upon me. I've been taking notes, writing things down. I'm gonna do some research myself too, man, because one thing in my life I've been missing is a spiritual belief system, right? I'm not. I don't believe in religion. I think religion just divides people. But um, this spirituality is where my heart at. Though, you know what I'm saying? I love nature and like the natural way of doing things. You know what I'm saying? Like all this medication they giving us and stuff is not meant for human consumption. That's why we see like a commercial would say, if you've been taking this medication, you be entitled to this amount of money and all of this. You know what I mean? But I'm already messed up now. All the money in the world ain't gonna help me now. I'm already messed up. So yeah, you're definitely right.
so,
Now I have one question right now. Copper, right? What benefit do copper have for us?
benefit of.
I heard it helped with like arthritis. Is that true? Copper.
Well, think about what arthritis. Think about what copper is. Copper is a conductor. What is the human body? The human body is a one big battery, right? Because we have energy that surrounds us and that is inside of us. That's why we need electrolytes in our system, right? Because dealing with the positive ions and different things in our system. So we need copper just like we need. So in our trace minerals coming from internally, right? We don't need an amazing amount of copper because we need also zinc. We need a balance between zinc and copper, just like we need a trace amount of gold, of silver, of all these other things. We need trace minerals, right? And so, as well as we need vital minerals, vitamins, vital minerals, right? Vitamins. Uh, then we also have many other things that our body is in need of. So, of course, we need copper because those things that a plant has in the earth is also what we feed off of, right? That's why we eat plants for energy. We eat plants that will give us the nutrients that we need, the vitamins, the minerals, the all of the things that create life in our system that helps us to have a healthy biome, gut biome, right? The things that help us uh, we have enough water in our system, so we need good nutrients or electrolytes in that water. We need things that are actually going to give us what we need to sustain ourselves, right? To build ourselves, and in a greater sense. So that's why when we talk about any mineral, we need minerals, but we need minerals in not in a greater amount. So what I'm thinking that you're asking is that we definitely need copper in our body, but when you talk about external, like within, right? If I'm
I was saying, like, let's say if I wear like a copper bracelet or a necklace, will that help with arthritis, like in
well, because,
particular? Like,
mhm. Because think about when you wear something and your body's trying to excrete or push something out, automatically, you know, then you'll see like this black ring around, or you'll see this thing that's happening in your system because it is a conductor of energy. Copper is a conductor of energy for certain, right? Um, just like a lot of other metals are conductors. Some are weaker, some are stronger conductors. Copper is a strong conductor of energy, right? But we also have to think of what we need physically in our body, though. Um, in our body, we need trace amounts of copper, and we need to balance that out with zinc. Zinc and copper need to be in balance and harmony, right? So when we have copper on, it absorbs in our system because what's the biggest organ we have? Our skin. So that's important to understand. Um, but the topic today is IFA, understanding IFA. So I don't want to get too far off of that topic. But to answer
yeah.
something that you were talking about before was think about the word chi. That's an Igbo word, right? So don't get that mixed up with the Eastern word chi, right? Because Igbo people are far older than that. But that word is a word that is, they may not say chi in Yoruba, but there are words that are similar that speak about the same thing, right? But the word chi is Igbo word.
But is the Igbo people and the Twa people uh uh is they related? Like, do they go back as far?
Well, the Twa people go back to everybody. Those original people on the earth, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do the Igbo people go back that far?
Yeah, everybody does. Goes back to them. Everybody on this planet Earth does. Goes back to the Twa. That's the original people. They were here before 30, 40,000 years before anybody else, or longer, before anybody else. Before anybody else existed. As far as like so-called ethnicities and other things, that's they were the original people on this earth. So we talk about the
Do
San
they
people, or the Bayaka, or the Twa, or the little people were
they
here.
practice Ifa too though?
Mhm. Most definitely. You can go. So the
Okay.
Onya Buffet talks about, so all systems you can trace back to them. All systems, every single one. And so when you think about when they speak of the little people, because the Onya Buffet spoke of that. That's the king of all the Yorubas throughout the world. Um, and so he spoke about how they themselves were the connections between wisdom and understanding within Ifa was the little people. He doesn't necessarily say Twa, but it is the same thing, the little people. Because there's no culture on this earth that doesn't talk about them and deal with them. Nowhere, not on this planet Earth, right? And so Ifa itself is so dynamic because it is why has it survived in the way that it has is because it is one of the older divining systems on this earth. It's a binary code.
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate the wisdom. We call it a night, man. But I definitely appreciate all the wisdom, though, man. I learned a lot.
Thank you for coming up.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Thank you. And like, subscribe, man. Subscribe. Come chop it up with me in DM. I'm always loving to have conversation with folks. You know.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Yep. 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 So anyone else have any questions or things they want to bring in, talk about, connect to, build with the topic that we are talking about today. And so if you're just coming in, the topic today specifically is understanding Ifa. So what I mean by that is understanding the nature of Ifa, understanding what it is that we seek to accomplish when we're going for Ifa divination. And why is that important? Because you really want to understand what it is that you're seeking to accomplish when going there, right? So it's not a like a yes no thing. Ifa goes deeper than that. It goes down to the core of the issue, brings everything up to the forefront, and then there's not just information and taboos and stuff like that you see. Now, when it has that, now it goes deeper and says, now let's deal with the issues with Ebo, how to put these things into balance, how to open these things correctly so that it is in sync with your destiny that you came here to fulfill. So that's why it's good and important to come in specifically and answer or connect to or build with things that we're speaking about. Okay. So now, why do I say make the distinction between tarot and um, pendulums and all that things like an E5?
Hello,
Ah, how are
Baba.
you? How are you, Christian?
Adorable, yeah. I'm doing quite well.
Yeah, we were supposed to connect. I don't know what happened.
When?
You said you was gonna give me a call.
Really?
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I
Text me.
know I spoke to you on the live last time.
Yeah.
It was late at night, but yeah, no. I know we were talking about e-file and stuff like that, about ebos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you hear the topic today?
You said understanding e-file, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Did you have any questions, or did you want to kind of connect to anything that has been said, or?
Um, I mean, for myself, IFA is like a fundamental part of my life,
Mhm.
and I stick to it um as much as I can, and I comply with any advice or ebols that are assigned for me to do, so I can live a prosperous, peaceful life as much as I can.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. Did you hear some of the conversations that we were having, or did you just?
I got on the live not too long ago.
Okay, okay. Because I was mainly so I shortened it in the topic space just because I wanted to kind of so when I say understanding Ifa, I was mainly speaking about how when coming to a Babala for divination, what kinds of things that you should expect when coming for a Ifa divination, and what is an Ebo, why do we do Ebo? When I was just before you came on, I was going back into that same subject if people missed it, about how pendulums and tarot cards or psychic readings and things like that are their own systems in itself. And so tarot cards and pendulums don't produce Odu. So that's the
Yeah.
difference between those things and Ifa divination is that they don't produce Odu.
The thing with IFA is that IFA provides the solution to the problem as well. That's the that's what I love about IFA. When it comes to tarot and stuff like that, yes, some people are gifted and they have the psychic ability, but not necessarily is the solution that they're or the remedy that they're giving you what's gonna fix your problem.
Exactly. Exactly. Because
Because when you go through IFA, it's not the Babalawo or the priest giving you the solution. It's Olodumare assigning it to you
exactly.
through
Exactly.
Odu. So it's like it's a guarantee win-win.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Go ahead.
you might not see the results right away, but as long as you comply with EBO, it will come through. It will and it should come through.
And I will say though that with Ifa Bigba, you do see it right away. You do. It's very potent, very direct, very clear, and it is. So there are different tools of Ifa. This is what I'm speaking of now. That Ifa Bigba does not like to waste time. So with, and this is not to knock or to look down on any other tool of Ifa. It's just that Ifa Bigba does. It does not like to waste time. Get straight to the point. So there's always Ebo, but the Ebo, there is no Ebo in Abigba, meaning there's not the implements you put in your hand, put it behind your back, and switch and hold in your hand while they're divining, right? There is none of those things in Abigba, because in the first row, so in those other tools, they say Ibi and Ire. Within Abigba, they say Abiku or Seku, or the opening or the closing doors, right? So with that, there are specific things that because it doesn't like to waste time, that ebo needs to be done within 6 days. So the day of the reading, and then 6 days after that, right? So that's like you only have 6 days to get this ebo done. You don't have a week, you don't have 2 weeks, you don't have a month, you don't have 2 months. It needs to be done immediately, right? Within those days. Because if not, you have to do it all over again. And so you don't want to compound the issue. And so also to Crystal's point, it's very important to take heed to what it is that you deal with when you come in for E5 reading, right? Because that abo is so important. Because one thing to see the information or hear the information, and then what? What do I do now? What's the next steps? What are the taboos? What are the things that I need to really watch out for, and how do I get involved with these things? So that's why it's important to, when you open the doorway, you always close the doorway. Because if you don't, then that's when you'll have issues. You do have a question, Crystal? I saw you open up. You.
I do. No, I'm typing. That's why I put my mic because I work overnight,
Okay.
so I'm typing. But no, I completely agree with you. Like for my personal experience, like every time I do e-divination, I do try to do a bow ASAP. It mostly is to like prevent any negative taboo that might come my way, and also to keep balance. I don't know, that just seems to work for me. I feel like that's very key for in my life. And when I don't do a bowl, like I do see things start like shifting a different route. Yeah, so I'm like, no, I have to stay on my A game and be on top of my IFA stuff.
Yeah, and it's so true because you don't want to get caught up in a lot of things that kind of distract you. So they're they say, well, oh, this doesn't work. So I can go. There's a taboo for peanuts. Well, I can eat peanuts if I want to. Okay, sure you can. But if I'm saying that if you do eat peanuts, these are things that's probably going to happen. It's going to affect your destiny or affect your health or affect your whatever. So you have to think about why these taboos are there and why they're important to adhere to. Not so there's the ebo that's done, and then you also have to adhere to taboos or to warnings that Ifa brings up. right? Crystal also brought in another good point that when you deal with Ifa, there are things that come in that if you are not careful and you lapse, you say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that right now. I don't have the money." Don't open up something that you don't know how to close, or don't open up something that are not willing to close, because those things makes it 10 times harder for your life. So nobody's seeking to, definitely an honorable Babalao is not seeking to tie you down. It's not seeking to impede or block your path in any way. That ebo is merely to say, look, these are the things that came up. So this is what Ifa has set forth in breaking down and to take care of these issues in a way that there may be a deeper diving thing. So if you have, for example, you may come into Ifa and say, I want to, is this business, or let's even take it out of that context of business, is my purpose in life, my purpose in life is meant to go to Ifa or whatever. But if your child is sick, or if things are going on specifically in your life, or you yourself have things, personality things that you need to work on, or different things that's going on in your life, then if I saying, look, take care of these things, let's get these things rooted out first with this ebo, because it's going to bring it up from the depth or the core of the issue up to the forefront, so that you can deal with these directly, and then you could adhere these taboos that I'm not going to do these things, so that these things can flow smoothly in my life, and then also my family's life, or the people that surround me, that I care about. And that's what really
Asha.
these things open in. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I was saying Asha, that's very truthful. Sometimes we can get selfish and just think about ourselves. But like myself, I'm a mother of three, and I do it both for myself, but I also try to do as much as I can in both for my children. And with IFA, I think there's like no way of going wrong. I am very thankful to IFA for all the blessings, all the positive thing has brought to my life. And I think if people are not like into IFA, they should definitely look into it and explore it. And I don't see any going wrong with it.
And I think that's important too, because when you do when you go for a divination, you automatically affect, because those are your children that came from your womb, right? So you automatically are doing ebo for them when you do your ebo, right? Because what affects you will affect them. How you develop and grow will also help them to develop and grow as well. And I think that's really important, um, because as we begin to develop and seek greater insight into our destiny, our path, and so also want to, I know I always say this, but I also want to say this again, that when we speak of Isheshe, right? Isheshe, everybody on this planet Earth has an Isheshe. It's your father and your father's paternal ancestors, your mother and your mother's maternal ancestors, and then your own Ori Inu, your fate, your soul, your destiny, right? And then that path that Ori leads or has on this earth, that is Isheshe. So there's nobody on this earth that does not have Isheshe, right? And so I say that like that because I'm coming from a traditional form or lineage. I was initiated in Nigeria, so those things are, and there's many different lineages in Nigeria. A1. So there's when you look at those things, there are many different ways to approach Ifa, but Ifa itself is the same, no matter where you go, in the diaspora or on the continent. Ifa is Ifa, right? Um, and that's important to understand as well, because now, mind you, I don't ever disrespect anybody else's system. Meaning, when I connect to people or talk to people online or otherwise, if they're coming from a different lineage or a different system than me, I can talk to anybody, because Ifa can talk to anybody. Ifa is a great body of wisdom. But it doesn't mean that I seek to smash on anybody else's system, or do I seek to push people away, right? When I say when I talk about the distinction between tarot cards and pendulum and those things like that, those are different systems. But that doesn't discredit them. That just says if you want a deeper understanding of things, IFA is a good way to go, because IFA gives you insight into the things that you seek to accomplish in your life. So not just information, but also gives you insight on how to, like a roadmap, and how to maneuver through this life. And also, we talked about Ori Inu. Your all Ifa does is tap into your Ori Inu first and foremost, because that's the most important Orisha that we could ever have, is our Ori Inu, and we have that at birth. So when Ifa taps into that Ori Inu, which holds everything that you are and everything that you will be in your life, is already in your Ori Inu. That's why it says the soul, the fate, the destiny, because that's your direct connection to Olodumare, right? And so understanding that says a lot, because sometimes we get caught up in only looking for something outside of ourselves first. But within the Yoruba tradition, they say, look to your Ori wisdom first before you go to Ifa, right? So that means if you're studying with someone or you're dealing with something and you're not knowing how to throw Obiabata, right, or kola nut, full of kola nut to your Ori, then how will you communicate to your Ori to know when things are out of sync, right? On a daily level. Because that's also important. You don't have to be initiated to throw kola nut. Right? Now, there's different lineages that do different things. But as a whole, in the tradition, you don't have to be initiated to throw obiabata or four-lobe kola nut, right? Which is a way to connect to renew scripture. Oh, thank you. Alicia, how are you? Come on up. You can come in and speak on. Okay. So that's important to understand those things as well, because it's it's so much that's involved within the tradition that some things may get swept underneath the rug, or there's just so much to see and understand that there may be things that you may forget, or not forget, but may not know, right, or may not be exposed to. So that's why I started the forum in the first place, or this to come in the way that I have here, because I want to make sure that there's certain things that people may not know. They're first coming into tradition, or what does it mean when I go for Ifa divination? How does that look? What do I should expect? Is all traditions, all lineages the same? Will I be able to get the information that I need? Some things are, and I always take it back to the continent of Africa, right? Because Ifa is not strictly in Nigeria. Because of that, it's also really good to understand that there are many other aspects of Ifa, but it's all Ifa. You go to Dahomey or Benin Republic, you have Ifa. Right? You go to Togo, you have Afa. You go to the Igbo people, you have Dibia Afa. You have many different angles and different ways to approach Ifa, but it is all Ifa. It's important, because usually Igbo people get forgotten about when it comes to the divining systems, right, that are Ifa. Usually the Igala are forgotten about, because most people only know one or two lineages, if that. That's why it's always good to study and to connect with people, because you never know who it is that you're connecting to, or when or how these things interact or connect. That's why I was talking about Shango, where Shango his mother was Nukbe and his father was like a royalty in the Yoruba kingdom, one of the Yoruba kingdoms in Oyo. So knowing that gives a different perspectives, right? Because we know that Ibibio, the Nukbe, the Ga, the even in certain areas, the Dogon or Dogo people, right? That they are also related to the Yoruba people to a certain degree, right? It's because these fictitious borders that we talk about all the time don't have anything to do with these cultures. Just because you put up a border between Ghana and Nigeria, or Ghana and Burkina Faso, or Ghana and wherever, right? That doesn't mean that they don't have a connection, right? Or Ghana, well, Ghana, not because Nigeria and Ghana don't have a border, but Ghana and Togo, right? Or Burkina Faso and Togo, or on and on and on and on. So you have all these different places and spaces that have interacted with each other on many occasions because people travel, not only for trading, but also for they interact, they intermarry all the time. You know, people move all the time. When I was living in Burkina Faso, they weren't originally from Burkina Faso, or they used to call Upper Volta, right? Again, these are colonizer words that they made for these countries, the names of these countries. Like Nigeria is not something that was originally what it was called, right? Because you had different regions and different peoples in different areas, right? In the north there was one, in the south there was another, and this one and that one, and on and on and on and on, right? So when looking at these different systems and places and spaces, you know, you can see how they interact, and then how they sometimes fought each other, right? How they sometimes had certain similarities that they would cross these areas into to connect and study, right? So that's also really important when understanding what IFA is, because IFA is not just strictly Santeria and Lukumi in the diaspora. There's many things in the diaspora that people study that are related, that can be related back to IFA. Voodoo, right, has IFA. It's called AFA, right? So you understand these things and see how these things start to really build up and go. Then you have a whole other thing that's happening. It's not just one dimensional. It's not just one lineage. It's not just one thing, because there's many, many different lineages. 16 different kingdoms, but then in those kingdoms you have subdivisions of subdivisions of subdivisions of kingdoms, right? And so when we look at that, then you see this thing is more an expansive understanding. So when we talk about geomancy is all throughout the continent, right? But geomancy is rooted in Ifa. When you say alpha is Ifa too. Now, mind you, there are nuances because they rely on certain things or do certain things. But when you look at the markings, you look how it's done, that is Ifa. Period. Now, mind you, again, you have different ways of approaching or connecting to certain things. Like, for example, you may see a video on YouTube that shows somebody like divining in the earth, right? Marking Odu in the earth. That's not strictly in Dahomey. That's not strictly in Togo. That happens in what they call Nigeria today. That happens in a lot of places, right? So you may see the Ewe people when they divine, or maybe even the out of Togo, or the Fon, how sometimes they divine with like 3 Opueles, and they're throwing it toward the client and back to themselves. So that's just nuances within those traditions. But that Ifa is still Ifa. Period. So, but it doesn't take away from any one of these traditions. It just says these traditions are important to have a clear understanding of what that means and how that flows, right? Because you begin to open up the doorway to a greater understanding of how things act or interact as a whole. So that's what things become when understanding Ifa. You open a doorway to having a clear understanding of everything in existence. Ifa specifically is that. It is the great body of wisdom. So if you only look at the Opan Ifa, which is the dividing table for when we press the key in Ifa, right? One tool of Ifa. Then you will see specifically that, okay, these things are coming up in X, Y, and Z, but it is a 360-degree circle that you see there, right? And so those things also play a role in many other aspects, right? Things are marked on it, things are not marked on it, things are opened up, things or whatever, right? So when you're looking at Bigba, there's certain other ways because our Bigba is a standalone, just like Ikini Fi is. But Opwele is not a standalone. Very important to understand. You cannot make Ebo on Opwele. So don't mix up Opwele and Abigba. Those are two different tools. Abigba is a standalone, meaning it needs nothing else. It has everything that it needs encompassed within itself. Right? So Abigba has 4 Odu instead of 1. And so there's other Odu that surround it, that are underneath it, that there's many surrounding Odus at many different other angles. But the 4 primary Odu are there. So I'm saying all these things because there are many different ways to approach Ifa in the traditional form. And it's important to understand what is it that if you are seeking to study or to deal with things in a certain way or to get a divination, what it is that you are specifically studying. Some people don't know what lineage that they're studying, right? Because you have to understand what it is that's going on and study it and see it for what it is. Understand it for what it is. When you get a divination from a Babalao or Yanifa, and then you do the abo with them as well, then you don't go to another Babalao and ask for information about that Odu that you received from that other Ianifa or Babalao. That's disrespectful. Don't do that. That's disrespectful. Because you took that time, energy, and effort and money to get a divination with someone, with a priest or priestess. And then you go to somebody else to ask for questions about that information that you got from them because it's specific things that came up in that divination with that specific priest or priestess. So that etiquette is also highly important. You know, when seeking to study, don't seek to underhand. I'm just gonna get some information. That you're not gonna get any information like that. So there's no need to even go down that road. Oh, I'm gonna just pick and choose and do this, and I'm gonna just go in books and get everything. It's an oral tradition, period. At its inception to now, it is an oral tradition, meaning only spoken by mouth. Right? It's from person in that lineage, that you're teaching certain things. You gain certain things, and then you go to another elder in other places and learn from them as well. You're always constantly learning. There is no end to Ifa knowledge and wisdom. That's why we stand on those principles. Okwan, Idajo, Iwakwale. Wisdom, justice, and good character. This is what we stand on. These are the pillars that we stand on, that we build off from. Okwan, Idajo, Iwakwale. That's important. Because then now you open up the door to something else. So you see a Babalao with, these aren't dreads, these aren't locks. It's called Dada. It's different context. They're not just in one area or one region of the world. It's important. So there's all understanding what it is that you're seeing, that you're dealing with, that you're connecting to, that you're opening up with. Right? What are you actually studying? What is Ifa? How does it function? How does it open up the doorway to get things moving in a certain kind of way? All important things to understand when it comes to Ifa divination, for studying Ifa, right? Because sometimes what happens is that people take one thing from one thing, and then they smash it on another thing and say, this is Ifa. But if you understand the knowledge base, the practicing of Ifa, it is complete within itself. No matter where it's at, it is complete within itself. It doesn't need anything else to add on to it, or to uplift it, or to open it up in any way, because it is complete within itself. And so a lot of times what happens is people will get initiated in Ifa, and then they come back, and then they don't have access to that elder anymore, or whatever the case may be, because things happen. Then they start adding in all these other things like tarot cards and pendulums and da 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 da, because they want to start divining it and say, now look, I'm an Ifa. Look, I'm a Ifa priest. But that doesn't still equate, because there's no Odu involved with tarot cards or pendulums. I keep saying that because I keep seeing it. People keep talking about it in that context, right? And it is not that. It's important to understand that.
No, I agree. That also, people like tend to they'll tend to like mix like Ifa and other spiritual practices. And
Right.
I get it, it's spirituality, but Ifa's Ifa. It's one method, you know? Like it's not, it has nothing to do with tarot cards, or any other source of divination. Yeah, I've seen that definitely for sure. It's out there. Yeah.
All the time, right? We see that all the time. There's so many different people that come in and use and confuse a lot of different systems. Now,
Yeah.
when I say that, I'm not saying, so for example, somebody got initiated in Togo, and then they also were initiated in Benin City with the Edo people, and then they go to being initiated in um, Dahomey into Ifa in a certain way, right? Meaning, or certain other entities that exist in that place, in that kingdom. That doesn't conflict in a lot of ways, because they actually balance each other out, because there are things that are there that are also in other places, but there are things that are specific in certain areas. Like, for example, when we talk about different orishas, Aziza is not all over the place. It's in one specific area. Oshoshi is not all over the place. It's in one specific area, right? And so when understanding that, then saying that this deity is it, and on across the board, you may be talking about a different system. You may be talking about a different lineage. You may be talking about somebody's ancestor, because that's also the case. So when somebody talks about Osain, there's certain things that you'll never know about Osain unless you are initiated in that system. Period. There's things that you won't know about Ifa until you are initiated in that grove. A Babalao, key point, a Babalao cannot initiate anyone into anything unless they themselves are initiated in that Orisha or the things. Period. It cannot be done. Because if someone if there's a ceremony going on, for say, for example, for a Lokun, at a certain point that Babalao has to leave if they're not initiated into the mysteries or the secrets of Olokun. Period. That's a given. Um, and why is that so important to say? Is because, again, you don't want to be lumped into things, or opened up things, or seeking to um, be caught up in things that you're thinking is one thing, but reality you're doing something else. To make sure that you have a good, clear understanding of the alul that you're dealing with, or the teacher that you're dealing with. Make sure you have a clear understanding of what it is that you're practicing. Some people don't, right? They may have only come in contact with certain aspects of the tradition, and then they say, "Oh, this is all the tradition." Okay, but you have to first understand that these things are different lineages. So not everything is going to be 100% exact as it is in one, as it is in the other. There are going to be things that are going to be fundamentally different from Oyo to Ife, from Ekiti to Lagos. There may be things that are different, nuances that are different. So because of that, it's so important to understand, because when you get into the system, you want to be able to study. You say, okay, well, yeah, there are many different lineages. It's not just one lineage. Because they approach, they study, they teach differently from Babalawo to Babalawo, how they were taught in their particular family. So, yeah, there may be things that one Babalawo does that another does not. Facts. That's not weird. That's not something that that doesn't happen. But I always make that distinction of saying when we say Ifa, we are speaking of someone that has trained and studied Ifa. They can know one Odu to all each Odu, one verse to each Odu. That doesn't discount them, because they can give you just as much as a good insight to what's going on. There's also other symbols and other things that's also being used, ground drawing, a bunch of different things that's there that can be used for certain things. Opening up and propitiating and doing things in a certain way. How they approach and deal with Ebo could be different. Right? Lineage to lineage. Understand what it is that you are, what lineage that you're dealing with, and what are they actually teaching you? And what are you seeking to learn? Very important. Because when you go to another lineage and you learn something else, you know how to make that distinction. Like some lineages won't allow women to be initiated or see Opaiku. But is that across the board? No, it's not. It's not across the board. There are lineages, some lineages that say, women shouldn't be initiated into Egungun or to Ifa or to this or to that. Is that across the board? No, it's not. You see what I mean by lineages and different aspects and angles of things? You have to be very careful so that you know exactly what are you studying. And truly study is about the study first and foremost. That you won't get in a book. It is an oral tradition. Because it's an oral tradition, it doesn't stop one way or another, one thing or another. It won't stop those things. Because it's consistently passed down from generation to generation to generation, or from that aluo to that student on a consistent basis, and checked and rechecked and checked and rechecked. There's so much. Ifa truly is infinite in scope. There's no one Babalawo. There's no one Ianifa. There's no one priest or priestess of Orisha or otherwise. Because Olokun is not an Orisha. Egungun is not an Orisha. There are such things as Erumale and other entities that exist on a consistent basis. Right? So that's really important to understand, because there's so much to know and to study, so much wisdom to gain. Because wisdom is not, we say we stand on the pillars of Okbon, which is wisdom, but wisdom is not just it's not just something you jump up one day, I got wisdom. No. Wisdom itself comes from experience and learning how to apply that experience to your daily life, or something that is imparted to you by an elder that takes the time, energy, and effort to impart it to you, so that you don't have to go through certain pitfalls and issues in your life, because you're listening to this elder who's giving you insight. That's what Ifa is. Ifa is an elder. Great body of wisdom. The word of Olodumare. Which is Olodumare, the great quantifier of all existence. So, the great mathematician, if you will, great architect. So that's important to understand. What is it that we seek to accomplish before we step into anything? What do we want to know? What do we want to study? How do we study the things that we do? What is it that is important to us in our lives? Work and our life's purpose. What is our purpose in life? How do we obtain that insight into our life? So, from my understanding, and I only can come from my experience, it has been through Ifa that I've gained that insight. There are many different ways, many different systems on this earth. And know that Orunmila has traveled worldwide on a consistent basis. So when we speak of Ifa, we don't speak of Ifa in a one-dimensional, one reality, or one way, because it's not. There's many ways, many lineages. But as a whole, Ifa is Ifa. And that's the beautiful thing about it. That's how we're able to develop and grow. Like, subscribe, share, and follow, please. I've been on for a while, so I definitely wanted to come on and kind of see how folks is rolling through. Share some diamonds, some gifts, some coins, and things like that. I would appreciate it. Also, thank you for the share. If you do seek to support me otherwise, I don't know what's going on. I know I've heard about they may be trying to shut this down, so I don't know if that's true or not. I'm talking about TikTok. That is my Cash App if you want to support me in other ways as well. But you can also see a lot of things that I do on YouTube or Instagram. And I may start doing more on Instagram if this does kind of belly up. Because I like to share and connect with people on a regular basis, especially people that are not familiar with Ifa. Right? It's one thing to preach to the choir, but it's another thing to really help people that are not having a good understanding of Ifa. What is it? How does it function? So that they won't get duped by 419s, as we call them, or 419s, we say in Nigeria, where it's a scammer. You don't want to be scammed by someone, right? You want to make sure that those things are, that you're getting good information, that you're able to study fully, that you are getting divination that is, in fact, aiding and helping you, and not one that is just taking your money and running. Make sure that you understand that. And that's why I do these forms. That's why I do these things in the way that I do them. I do repost a lot of the videos, the lives on that have been recorded onto YouTube. So that is another way for you to gain insight to that. So if you do seek to gain insight into divination or herbal work, I'm also a 10th generation herbalist. So if you do seek to do those things, then definitely also come and DM me about that as well. Still working on my website, so I'm getting that together. But you can DM me or go to YouTube or Instagram. Afro Urban Apothecary Shop is the Instagram. So you can go on there as well. And I think I'm going to start to build a little bit more deeper within that, within those spaces with lives and things like that, because I haven't done it in that way. Because it's important to share information, to gain information, to give information. That is not, these aren't secrets. I'm not giving any secrets away. I'm not going into anything that is counter or that is giving anything that is that a person would not understand. It's merely for those who seek insight into what it means to practice a traditional system of IFA, because that is where I'm coming from. From a traditional system, I am a Babalao a la Bigba, a Babalao that uses the tool, the IFA tool of a Bigba. So, did you have any other questions, Crystal, or any comments or anything like that that you want to bring in?
No, no questions from the top of my head.
Okay.
Oh wait, I do have a question, Baba. How do you feel about you know how in Nigeria, like the Babalawo, is able to like have different wives
Mm-hmm.
as long as he's able to provide, for all of them. It's it's part of their culture and stuff.
All right.
How do you feel about that in the States?
Well, it all depends on how what the agreement that you make. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because there's clearly, if you know anything about that, and in general, it's not a freak fest. you know, it's about really being able to take care of and support them.
Yeah.
In the States, obviously, if we're here, and so if you have a business or you have something that you're supporting that flow of what's going on with that Babalao, right? And you're building this family unit. That's a different story than somebody just having like multiple people in a space. That's
Yeah, I
different.
agree. I just find it that for some, it's kind of hard to accept
That's
the
true.
the culture,
That's true. That's true.
It's hard for them to accept because it's not part of the US culture, So in Nigeria, it's like it's their culture. They're born into that.
Right.
So it's different.
And even there, it's even there when you say there's a saying in Yoruba where they say that one wife is happy. One wife can make your life happy. Two wives can make your life balanced or abundant. Three wives would drive you crazy. That's what they say. But it's what that means is that don't ever go into anything that you can't handle, right? If it's only
Facts, yes.
for to have sex with somebody, then that's the wrong reason because that person's going to get older eventually, right? So they're not going to look the same eventually. That's why I love that when we talk about um, uh, when Orumila was, when Orumila was sitting in deep contemplation, and he was talking to Ogun, was the first one who came up and saw him in deep in thought, and he wanted to know why, what he was thinking, and he was like, I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand. And then he said, well, do you know the beginnings of things and the endings of things? And he said, of course I do. I'm Ogun. People make oaths. Technology forging a pathway. And I'm an alchemist. On and on and on. Right. This is what Ogun is. Right. So, but at the same time, he said, okay, well, can you go get me something in my shrine? So he goes in the shrine and sees all the things that he needs, right? He sees the cloth that they wear in the smithy, right? He sees the fresh, brand new cutlasses, amongst many other things, right? That he was looking for, flint, and many other things he was going to the market for. So he runs out and he's like, Arumila, oh, how did you know? I'm looking for these things. I'm on my way to the market. Oh, well, yeah, sure, it's yours. Do you want it? It's yours. Right? But come play a game with me of IO. IO is like a almost like chess almost. Because it's very strategic how you play. So he comes in, he sits, and he goes through these things and he starts playing, but Okun starts to lose intentionally because he can't keep his mind off of the things that's inside of that shrine of Arumila. Right? And so when he did that, he's like, so Arumila, you know, Arumila is thinking about this and saying, Okun, you play better than this. Why are you intentionally losing? He's like, you caught me. I can't keep my mind off of these things in your shrine. I need them. That's why I was going on the way to the market for. I said, go inside, go grab them. But when he went inside, what did he see? He saw those same brand new machetes, broken up, rusted. He saw those same brand new cloth for the smithy. It was all tattered and torn. Right? The flint was no good anymore. So then Ogun rushed out again. He was like, "Hey, what kind of, what are you trying to pull on me?" He's like, "No. So I told you, you don't understand what the beginnings of things and the endings of things. They're one and the same." So when we talk about polygyny or polygamy, right? It's a different story if you're just doing it to have people around you. Or are you there to collectively build with others? It's a different conversation. Can you do that? So if everybody's in line with the things that seeks to happen, and you made a contract with, maybe as them as a puertabis, as your wife, right? And then you literally physically had conversations about this together, and it's not just one person making a decision, then that's a different conversation. Now, if you've done these things in a certain way, now you're talking about something that's in harmony with each other. You're building to a same goal. You're opening up the same doorway. You're going toward the same route and place of origin, right? Then, of course, it's going to work out. But if it's always like it's out of greed, out of selfishness, then that'll never work. Because IFA is about balance. Again, Okbon, Idajo, Iwakbale, wisdom, justice, and good character, first and foremost. If you feel like you need X, Y, and Z to do X, Y, and Z, have you really looked at it and what that actually meant and what does that entail? Because sex is not going to hold a marriage. Because what you find attractive today will be not ugly tomorrow, but it just transitions to something else, right? It's not going to be the same consistently across the board. So when we think about a joined marriage, even just a monogamous one, it still has to be something that is understood that you're marrying families, multiple families. If you're doing multiple wives, you're having families that you're dealing with on a consistent basis. Because it's not just you two people, it's you two people and their families that they're bringing to the table as well. That concept, there's a lot of concepts. So practicing a traditional system, traditional Ifa in the West is always going to be like swimming upriver. That's what it is. A lot of people won't even say, they may say at one point that they're down for the cause and seeking to do X, Y, Z. But Ifa never seeks to break up a home. So if you're not really serious and you're just coming into it just for the meantime, in the green time, and then when things don't go your way or things aren't going in a certain kind of way, you leave, then you weren't really there in the first place. You're not about that family unit in the first place. It's not about the family at that point. It's about you, a selfish motive. So if it's depending on what it's rooted in and how it's rooted and how it's done, then you start to see things in a different conversation. That's why my opinion on that is, right? Because I've seen it work. I've seen it work here. I've seen it work there. I've seen it work in many different places and spaces. But it has to be in unison with each other, not just one dictates all. It's like even if you look at a corporation, right? If that person is dogmatic, is a dictator, then it'll fall apart pretty quickly. People will leave, right? And nothing is going to be harmonious. Nothing is going to be in line with the things that you seek to accomplish. It won't be, because it's going to be counter those things. And then that's when you start to have problems, because it's not about the same goal. It's not about building anymore. It's about tearing it down so that it's all about me and me only. If it's only about me only, I don't care if it's coming from the Puerto Rico side or from the Babalao side. It'll never work if it's only about the individual. Period. In general, with any marriage. So that's my opinion, and that's really God's opinion as well. Go ahead.
I'm saying I do agree with you.
Mhm.
It has to be like a mutual agreement and a lot of communication.
Yeah, because that stuff is not. It's not an easy road to travel. It's not. You got
Have
many
you
different.
experienced that yourself?
No, I
No.
haven't.
Would you do it, or that's something that you wouldn't be open to as a bubble out?
I would be open to it. I'll be open to it, but again, it would have to be something that would be fully flushed out and understood,
Yeah.
right, by all parties. It's not something that just randomly happens. None of it is. It's a contract. It's things that actually build up into something. It's not just I need everything, for one, all for one. It's all about me or nothing. Then that won't work. And then obviously with E5, what's the first thing that you would do in general? You ask E5 first.
Yeah.
100%. I personally I can't do anything without asking E5. It's part of my Odu. I can't do anything without asking E5 first. That's his facts.
That's the way I
Because what's the
roll
purpose
too.
of having a family is really having children, building that those future generations, right? To have those things that really are developing and growing self and others, so that you have these things, these resources, these connections, these networks of things that we're seeking to strive together to build. That doesn't mean now that somebody's married inside of a polygamous situation that this person is just sitting up eating bonbons all day. That ain't it. Everybody's working. Everybody's working. Everybody's developing and growing and connecting to these things consistently. And that's what really comes into balance. Because think about in the West, a lot of times marriage is not on a lot of people's minds. They're not. You know, they're like situationships and a bunch of other things, but marriage is not always there, right? And it's kind of hard for me in a lot of ways because Ifa is always like, nope, nope, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work because my old dude is really, it has a lot of taboos. So there's a lot of things that can't happen, as it would in the West in a
You
lot of ways.
know, now that you say that too, when it comes to dating myself, like when it comes to dating, I tend to ask too, and I always get hit with the nose. So then I start thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna stay forever single.
Yeah, yeah, right. Because but I think that's important too because Ifa is greater than us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Because
it's something that we don't see coming up front,
exactly.
and it's preventing us from making that wrong decision.
I mean, I've had many times where Ifa was like, "No, it's not gonna work," right? And then not even a few weeks later, a week later, oh, I see why that's not gonna work. Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm not doing that. And I don't personally, I don't ever disrespect what Ifa says. If Ifa says no, it's a no. And so it's hard always to stay rooted in Ifa like that. Like for example, do we do things that somebody says um, that we shouldn't do only if people see it or hear about it, or we do things because it's the right thing to do? When somebody says 15 to get you 20, right? But is marrying or dealing with a 15-year-old only wrong because it's the law will take you to prison, or is it because this is not right to do in this society, right? And that's a big thing. I was talking to one of my students not too long ago. We was talking about Iwak Bale, because Iwak Bale is not always just um, good character as a whole, the same all over the place. Because good character here could be something different if you're in Nigeria. Good character here could be something different if I'm in Oakland. That person could be in Florida or Jacksonville or whatever, Mississippi or whatever, right? There's going to be different nuances, but that common respect, that flexibility, that being able to be, you know, not always right, being able to really build. That concept, not all the time, but for the most part, is hard here because most people have options of many different things. So I don't have to listen to you. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, it's not a dictatorship, but when you made the choice to come into a relationship, what is it that you're actually seeking to do? Is it only in the good times, and when it's bad, do you run for the hills, or you actually say, "Let's root in and really make this flow"? Now that's different than some saying that this is, only for when it's good, only when the money is there and the thing is flowing. Sometimes it may not be. Sometimes we all need to all pull together and make sure these things are flowing in a certain way. It's different, right? So I think that's important to realize too when we come to IFA, is that when someone is marrying a babalao, whether it be from somebody from the continent or somebody here or whatever the case may be, that you really have to fully understand what this means. Because when you go into those kinds of situations, you have to be very clear in what it is and who is it that you're dealing with fully. So what's the best way to know that? And who is their family? The person may be cool, but the family may have influence on them in some kind of ways. And so it may not be cool after that fact because it's convoluted sometimes. So you have to be very, very careful. That's why IFA divination is so key. So key. So that's what I say. I know it's a long answer, but hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because it's important, right? Important to have clarity.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Where are you from?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you
Um,
is that where you were originally from, or is that where you?
no, I was born in Jersey. And my family, my ethnicity is Mexican.
Okay. Yep. That's
Yeah,
cool.
but
So
I've been Jersey. Huh?
you know, how long have you been dealing with tradition, if you don't mind? That's
Well, let me give you a little um info on how I initially started through the Afro-Cuban,
okay.
right? I initially started in my early 20s.
Hmm.
So I'm 34 now, when I'm 35. So it's been a few years,
Mhm.
almost 15 years. I started in my early 20s through the Afro-Cuban tradition. I did get initiated through there. I because I wasn't aware of the traditional IFA. So I did get initiated through the Afro-Cuban. I went to Cuba, did the ceremony over there. Came back. I practiced that branch for a bit.
Mhm.
And then I married a Babalao,
Mhm.
and he was traditional.
Okay.
Um, right. So when I met him, he wasn't initiated yet.
Okay.
He was like studying and stuff like that. But then
Here,
he
here in the
eventually,
here in the
um,
state or in.
no, no, here in the States, in Jersey as well.
Okay.
And then, because he used to practice, he was into the Creole as well,
Okay.
the Afro-Cubans form, I would say, of Santeria. But he was not initiated in any form. I was, and then we were married, and then so he got initiated into the Ishesha, right, and traditional. So I wasn't initiated in none of that, right, because I was sticking to the practice that I knew.
Right. Right.
So then from there, I actually did the Iyanifa ceremony, and it was more because he kind of like got me to do it in a way.
Mm.
he spoke to me about it. And I guess that I took the decision that it was, since he was he was practicing tradition, that it would be more like convenient, like not convenient, but it was just like the right thing to do, I guess. And I did get initiated into that in Florida with Babalaos that came from like Nigeria.
Okay.
I did go through that initiation, and then, but see, this was what happened after. We were very happy and stuff, but I have like a bittersweet experience because then that marriage went downhill. I don't know why, but according to him, if we were going through some, like little hard patch, nothing major. And according to him, Ifat told him he had to leave our marriage,
Mm,
right? So he left. He
that's
just
interesting.
left and never came back.
If I never seeks to break up a happy home, if I never
Yeah, that's
home, that's interesting. So
yeah,
when you
that's
say that, I'm thinking of like, wait a minute, was Ifa involved with that, or I don't know.
I honestly think that he was untruthful in certain stuff, and I did notice that he would use Ifat to manipulate me in certain ways, because I wasn't as knowledgeable as he was. But thankfully I did connect with like my elders, like elders and stuff, like people that got me initiated into it, and they advised me like, no, like that's something that Ifa would never do, and he probably just did it out of it was his decision, and he probably interpret the message of Ifa wrong, and left. um but I don't know, life has been great though, like I followed up with Eboses and everything I have to do. I do have to study IFA. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I slacked on it just because life got hard, like a bit difficult with trying to raise children, going through divorce and stuff like that. But I could say that I strongly believe in in the faith, and I believe that IFA has gotten me through all these difficult times that I've gone through,
Right.
and that behind that situation there was definitely a lesson learned, and it only made me stronger. But yeah, like I'm initiated, but I definitely have a lot of studying to do.
Mhm. So have you have do you again? You don't have to answer this because it's a
No,
lot.
go ahead.
But uh, have you do you know how to throw obi bata and all those things like that? And have you?
I learned the basics. Yes, Obi Abata. I know how to do that. The where I got stuck were because when I did the Iyanifa initiation, my kids were very small. They were like still, like 3 and 5, or even smaller. Because I got initiated into Yanifa, I want to say like 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I do struggle with like doing the opera divination and stuff like that. But I know I can do it. It's just me having to sit down and focus. But I haven't had that
That's
I would say that time to actually dedicate because of kids and work and all the things that come with life. Because when I was married to him, he had the time to dedicate to his studies because I took over, like the house duties and things like that, and he would
that makes
have
sense.
the
It's good for him.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. So he would have the time to study, and that's something that I don't have. But since my kids are getting older, I am gonna be committed to like making that time to start doing my
Yeah.
own stuff.
Yeah. And it's important. So I would say when studying is so important. Um, so like even with a lot of my students, I always say that the time that you spend on the phone, the time that you spend, because I know children, I have a daughter, right? So I know for a fact that sometimes, well, she's older now, but I know for a fact that that is um, important. You want to make sure that they're doing well. Want to make sure things are flowing in certain kind of ways, right? That they're learning and they're dealing with things in certain kind of ways. Um, in the same way, when you really committed to learning, it doesn't have to be like 5-10 hours a day. It could be 20-30 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. Going through the order of the Odu, going through, especially with Opuele, because Opuele is when you're learning that in general from a teacher, then it's easier to kind of get things kind of moving in a certain way. And it because it is an oral tradition, because it is something that you need to have consistent study with, right? Not just Opele, but IFA in general. So if you are initiated to IFA, then you know obviously you received your Ikini IFA, right, in the Grove. Um, obviously you've done certain things, so it's like learning what I always seek to understand when I first started. I put it like that is really honing in on the Ori. That's why I talk about Ori more than anything else, right? And then looking at it from the perspective of what did I really want to learn first, because 9 times out of 10 it's like, oh, it's all about the verses, and true it is. You need to have a good understanding of those verses, but there's so many other nuances that are there too, right? So looking at those things and not seeking to rush into anything, just really looking at each of the nuances, because with Opele, obviously the right side holds the most weight, and then you're going on and on and on. You're looking at these different aspects of what it is that it is, and then step by step. That always helped me when I first started. Step by step. What is it in this step, in this step, in this step, in this step, in this step? This is how I go through this thing, right? So if it's an Odu that you're concentrating on, then really concentrate on that Odu, because I'll go through a verse 1,000 times. That's just me, because I want to make sure that it's not just in my head, but that I have it, in my permanent memory. So if when I'm tired or when I'm whatever, that verse still can flow, you know, right? And then having understanding of that Odu. What do you understand about the Odu itself? Have you really internalized what that Odu means, and how does it look like in your life? In your everyday life with your children.
Yeah, what I,
So,
what I try to do, like, well, what I actually do, it's like, for example, when I do my Evo for the month,
mhm.
well, I don't do it myself. I have my elder do it for me. Um, I'll once he gives me like the Odu that came up, like he'll give me the information and I'll read it
Okay.
over and over and over and over and then I see like the taboos and stuff like that, and then I'll read it over and over and over. So because it's a lot of information to keep, and yeah, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, because I mean, you can know verses, but if you don't constantly go through those verses, or you don't understand what they mean, or you're going through the what are the medicines inside of it? What is this? What is that? What is that? Then you start to forget because it's so much that you're going through. You have to constantly study. So there's memory medicine, but I remember one of my first little who initiated me to IFA was like just fully constantly going through it, repetition. Have it ingrained in your life. So I'm walking down the street. I remember taking my daughter to school, having her on my shoulders when she was in elementary school, and just walking her to school, taking her to school. I will be reciting verses. I'll be fine, right? I will be going through it. I'll be, going through the order of the Odu. I'll be going through this. I'll be going through that consistently, because it was like this is something I'm committed to. So at first, I didn't want to. I didn't want to be a diviner. I didn't. I just wanted to be a devotee. But my destiny said something different.
Yeah, same here. Like I don't see I always wanted to do it just for myself. And everything that I do it fights for myself. But being a diviner is or being, like guiding people, it's a big responsibility. Um and you really have to have your head straight, your life straight, because it's like how can you possibly guide someone else if you're not if you're not living a prosperous or like a stable life yourself, it comes with a lot of responsibility. So I always try to avoid that. I always just try to I try to stick to myself with IFA,
And you don't have
stuff
to be
like that.
super rich.
Hmm?
You don't have to be super rich in doing IFA. That's not the goal. The goal is to aid, help, and develop self and others. So it's my
Yeah.
destiny to go and be. I have to be a diviner. So that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And so this is like the 18th year of IFA, initiated to IFA. So it's like, it's constantly learning, dealing with situations and people on a consistent basis. You know, looking into and seeing how things are maneuvering and going, and then just even relearning things just by learning how people are dealing with these old dudes as they come to me for divination. You know, oh, greetings. How are you? Continue wisdom. Continue woman. Because it's important. It's important to have that understanding. You know, you always studying. So to have somebody there, a helpmate that is there, and you're able to go through things together is important. It helps a lot. You know, it helps things to flow a lot. Helps things to move and maneuver a lot. Because like you said, if someone is taking care of one aspect and you're taking care of another aspect, and then you can help each other to do things, to maneuver and to get things moving in a certain way. It's just helpful. It's a lot to do these things by myself. So yeah, I am my students come and aid me with their bows sometimes, or that's how you learn though. That's how I learned. When I when you put in the work, you start to learn that way. And then obviously you're sitting down and you're studying and you're going through things, but to put in the work is the way that you learn. You know, yeah, it's important. It's really important. And not everybody is destined to do it, because not everybody will consistently study. Just facts. Not
Yeah,
everybody is. You know, there's a lot of people that are called to be fire, but how many people actually stay and truly study and get involved and do it? Not a lot.
that's true. I've seen that. I've seen people get, well, not so, more in the, not in the traditional, like most of the balas that I like, or people that I met throughout the traditional, through my lineage as well, they are dedicated to Ifa, right? But through the other, through the like, I remember going through that for Cuban um side of it, and some people just get initiated, and they'll just leave their wishes there, and then just never, never did anything with them.
Right. Maybe because some people is that I was telling somebody recently, is like, if you're just doing this to go back to your roots, it's not enough, because it's not strictly about that. It's about your dedication to your destiny. You know, um, consistently studying and developing. So to have somebody there, and I think that's why in the States sometimes it's harder to find people that are in relationship wise, because not everybody is really about that. They say that, oh yeah, I'm gung ho, I'm about this life, I want to do this, da 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 da. But in the end, if it's not X, Y, and Z, because it's not like you normally would have in a regular thing, because it's a business. You literally have to run it like that, in a way that things are flourishing and flowing. And no, it's not just about the money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the way that, you know, when you have somebody in harmony with you and you can actually be able to build with them in a way that they understand. I don't have to over explain X, Y, and Z. Okay, this EBO needs to be done. We got blah, 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 blah. Let's get this done so that we can, X, Y, and Z. Let's go to this goal. Let's do da, 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 da. That's a whole different conversation. And I think that's why we said the ebb and flow of business rather than the money, say, etc. I'll continue with it. Yeah, so what I'm saying when I mean it's not just about the money, is that it is important to understand that as long as you're doing good work, that no matter what's going on, you're going to have clients. That's a given, right? Because once somebody sees that the work that you do, that IFA is opened up and you're going on their behalf to IFA and it's working for them, they're going to come back. That's a given, right? So if something is going in a certain way, or things are developing in a certain way, then that's a given that it's going to bring more clients, right? Because IFA takes care of me. Okwaisanwo, IFA is my pillar of support, is my foundation. Ifa Koride, Ifa brings back blessings of abundance in my life. Right? There's a whole story behind those names in Odu, right? Ifa Daero. Ifa will never allow me to die young, or any, like, I only have a daughter, but she has to go into Ifa. Or any other child that I have has to be initiated to Ifa. So does that mean, and I've seen people have interfaith or any, they're dealing with people that are doing other things, but it would be harder because somebody has to be on one accord with you, even if they're just in the house doing X, Y, and Z. Just everything is geared toward the things that are rooted in that household as Ifa household, you know, and that's big. That's really big because I see my Luo here. He's from Lobo Ekiti. Um, and so he. Did you have a question? You about to say something, Crystal?
No, I was gonna say that's facts because when it comes to relationships, like that's what I was saying. When it comes to like dating, that's where it becomes difficult. That's when it becomes difficult because you have one faith and then the other person's like, yeah, I don't know about all of that.
I know. One time I had somebody say, "Was that what you do for a living?" Yeah, I'm a herbalist. I'm a babalao. This is what I do for a living. What do you mean? That's what you do for a living? That's what I mean. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, does that pay the bills? Okay, so, oh no, are we having a conversation right now, or are you interrogating me? What's going on right now?
Yeah,
So
no,
that's where it's a difference, where finding somebody that really understands and really is about that life, because it is a lifestyle. It's not something that you check in for, and then I'm gonna go get a X, Y, and Z, because if something goes wrong that I don't like, I'm gonna just jump out. That's not that life,
no.
you know. So.
So I was gonna ask you a question. So for example, me says I'm initiated, right?
Mhm.
And would you suggest for me to date someone that practices the same faith?
Most definitely. So as a Ianifa, that in itself, that limits who you can date.
Yes, I've
Because
heard that before.
because now think about that. Now think about that as a whole, because as a Ianifa, your Ikinifa will suppress someone's destiny. So you have to marry a Babalao. There's no like maybe or could be,
Yeah,
right?
and yeah, and like they told me that before, but it's because I had that bad experience. It brought a lot of fear because I felt very abandoned,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I'm just like in the stage where it's like, what if I do date or marry another Babalo, but I'm so scared that they're gonna walk, like they're gonna use the word Avifa
Yeah.
to like we just be out. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Ifa says I'm leaving and they just leave, you
Right.
know?
Right. And then in and of itself, that's why because you have your own Ifa, you going and propitiating, connecting to your Ifa every day, asking questions, seeing what's going on. Is this person da da da? Because you know Obiabata, right? You you can ask questions on a regular basis to
Yeah.
your Ifa, to your Ori, because as you know, Ori Inu is very highly important to us. It's the most important Orisha. Period.
Or yes, very important.
And so because of that, you have options that others don't. Is this person really for me? Just because a person's a Babala doesn't mean that that's for you.
Yeah, no, for yeah, yes, facts. That's that's so true.
Just because you know
Doesn't
that
mean you're
in Oshe,
compatible.
and just like in Oshe Toi, when that woman went to a Babalao and said that she needed to marry a Babalao, she ran all over the place. She kept running away until she had to come back to that Babalao. You know, because literally with as an Ianifa, there is no like, because you can learn and press Ikini Fa. You can divine, right? You can go through these things as you learn. You know what I'm saying? And so that's important to realize, because when we look at that and we talk about that, is that person is are they in support of it? Which would be smart to be, because that enhances that household. And so that in itself says volumes, because what is Arumila? Arumila is calm. Arumila is cool always. There's no, so if there's something going on, he goes to Ifa. He creates things that he or she, as an Ianifa, goes to Ifa and asks specific questions. Goes into depth and saying, what is it that I need to do? Because you can't change anybody but self. What do I need to do in this situation to make my next, what do I learn from the last situation that this next situation won't be that, so that I have grown and developed from there? Because that in itself says a lot. How how do you open up that doorway to making sure that your life is successful? We root ourselves in Ifa first, as
Yeah.
practitioners of Ifa. We root ourselves in Ifa first. So if our family is rooted in that, then that means everyone in the household is rooted in that. You know, if that mother is teaching that child, the child is learning to respect that. So of course it ought to be easier to deal with that. But if you try to deal with somebody, like trying to date somebody that's a Christian right now, that's a like gung ho Christian, that would be
Yeah,
conflict. That
yeah,
would be
it doesn't
conflict.
work. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I had a hard time. So I'm just riding solo for now.
yeah, for real. Me do. you know, because it's like, you go through these things and you start to see what exactly that you seek in your life, and how do you do it properly, you know. Um, and it's important to realize what that means, because this isn't something that we put on and take off, daily. This is a part of our daily life, our daily routine. This is who we are consistently.
Yeah,
Solo is best because focus is on self. You can welcome someone. Yeah, I hear you, but we're talking about from an IFA context. And so IFA never seeks for people to be strictly single. That's not what that's about. We're seeking to develop a family unit
yeah,
first and foremost, right?
yeah,
So even though we may be single, it doesn't mean that um, those things are meant to be that way. Things happen, things go forward, right? For whatever reason. Because I'm not going to get into your business and like that. That's why I'm not. I'm trying to. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that. It's more so about specifically, um, as a practitioner, because I know that things get flowing. Like when I'm rolling with clients and doing this and teaching and blah 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 blah. I'm like, right, and then I still have to deal with all the other things that's going in, like you said, right? Still got to deal with the life stuff. Still have to deal with, okay, let me make sure that I got enough X, Y, and Z in the bathroom, and I have enough toilet tissue. I'm
yeah,
just saying mundane things, right? So making sure that everybody's fed and everybody's cool, and let's keep this moving and grooving and make this happen. Life stuff. So because of that balance, when you do have someone that is there, 100% there, then it makes it easier. Of course, that's what we seek. When you have taboos, you have to really adhere to them. So you have to have somebody that respects those taboos. That's why it's so important now more than any other time in your life to really check with Ifa. For me to check with Ifa in any situation that I seek to go into. And of course, I'm like, my daughter's in college right now, right? She's 18. So it's different than if she was a little girl, right?
yeah,
So that in itself is a whole other thing. You know, are your children practicing the things that you're practicing? Are they doing the things that you're doing? You know, because when you bring a babalao into that situation, will they really be able to fall in harmony with that babalao? Because you don't want your child around just anybody,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll
right?
tell you, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's super difficult. It's super difficult. Yeah, that's facts. Those are facts. Those are facts. Yeah. The joys of living in America and practicing IFA.
For real.
There are
The
a lot of
joys.
joys. I'm not saying that there aren't any, because there are a lot. But I would not change anything in my life, because IFA truly is giving me so much. You know,
No,
just like
I
a
agree
question.
with you. I agree with you 100%. And when there's times that I go through like whatever like hardship and stuff, I just stick to my faith, and I'm like, if I knows why I'm going through this, I shall come out of this, and I have faith that I will, eventually find love and remarry and live that happy life. I just it can get difficult at times, but I'm not gonna. How can I say, like, I'm not gonna rush myself to something that's not meant for me.
Mhm. And it's really be honest too. You know, what is it that you really want? You know, um, because that's a daily thing. Um, that's why we check in every day. You know, we're human too.
Yeah,
So there are gonna be
yeah.
things that we have, that we seek, that we know, that we want in our life. But what is it that we really want? And so we find those things first in our Odu, right? We see those things first in our Odu. What is it that our Odu says about relationships, about X, Y, and Z, about these things? And then that tells you volumes about the rest of your life, you know? And when that's supposed to happen, when it's not supposed to happen, when things are about to develop, when things are about to go into a certain phase, what things are going through, what are they developing into? What does it mean? You know?
So
Because
if I gave you my audio, can you give me some like feedback from your perspective, some knowledge
I
on it?
don't, I don't, I
You
don't
don't
do
do
that.
that?
I don't do that.
Oh, okay.
So the reason why I don't do that is because not obviously not live,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Not obviously not live, because we can talk and build about things in a certain kind of way, right? And then, but when somebody's got a divination and they've gone through their initiation with someone and they got the Odu and X, Y, and Z, it's different because you're fully initiated. It's not like it's just a regular divination, right? So if somebody gets a divination, they come to me and say, "Oh, I got a divination. Tell me about my Odu." No, you go back to that Babalao or ENE for that you got that divination from, right? That's different. So I understand what you're saying, and so, but I would never like to do that online, because that's nobody else's business.
Okay, got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I know what you
somebody,
mean.
yeah, because somebody says, "What's your Odu, Baba? What's your Odu?" You don't do that.
Yeah, no, I always keep it to myself. Even my IFA name as well. You know how they give
Mm.
you your IFA name?
So why is that?
Wait, what you mean? Why is what?
Why would you keep your EFI name to yourself? I don't understand.
Oh no, I mean I don't spread it out. Like my elders and stuff know my IFA name. But I don't go out there telling people, oh, I'm like this is I can share my IFA name with you. It's Ifake me.
If I can me. Okay, okay, okay.
Ifake
Yeah,
me.
EFI loves
Yeah.
me. Uh-huh. Yeah. And so, but that's just it. So when somebody speaks, so the reason why I ask that is because when somebody speaks my name, right? Somebody says Ifa Koride or Baba Fakoride or uh, Baba Opwesanwo, they're speaking my destiny. They are activating my destiny, my purpose in life. So somebody hears it or somebody says it, they're speaking of my destiny. They're making sure that, oh, if I koride, if I brings back blessings and abundance in my life, right? Because that Odu that it comes from, it speaks about how these things were abundant and fruitful. Why every child that was born on that day was called Ifa Koride, right? So it,
Hmm.
it has purpose. So when somebody speaks it, Almost like when people see they spell. When you saying something, you're activating it.
Yeah, like manifesting it, right?
Huh?
Manifesting it.
Exactly. Exactly. Because your name is important. That's why names are so important. When you say, "Oh, I picked my name. My name is uh, oh blah 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 blah." Okay, well, did you get that in a grove, or did you get that in a book, or what I'm saying? So people that are initiated and gain that name in the grove, that's different than somebody's just or maybe they got their name from like my daughter in a naming ceremony, right? So that has purpose, has meaning, has that's your just like your roadmap too. Because
That's so
everything that
true.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say that's so true that the names, like the names are very important, or names. I once had an elder when I was going through the like the hardship of the marriage, the breakup.
Mm-hmm.
I once had an elder tell me to live up to my name, Crystal. He's like, because Crystal is is something very valuable that not everyone can have. So he
Mm-hmm.
told me like that always like instilled in me like to always live up to my name.
Right. And so even more so, always live up to your IFA name,
Yes, for
right?
sure.
Because there's a reason why IFA loves you. Like IFA Kemi, IFA loves you. Right? So
Yes.
that when you see that, and it's I know it's more than a name, but just when you see that, right? Then it's like when somebody speaks about you, they speak of Ifa. When somebody says Okwesanwo, they're speaking of Ifa. Ifa is my support, my pillar of support, my foundation. That's who I am. You know, Ifa constantly tells me, stay at home. Everything you're gonna have and will have is at home. At first, I was like, "What do you mean?" Because I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm running here, I'm doing that, I'm working here, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But at the end of the day, if the briefer brings things to me. So in reality, that's what my name itself is talking about. That Ifa is my pillar of support, it is my foundation, it is everything that I am. So it doesn't negate anything else or anybody else's destiny when I say my name. So when somebody says, "Hey, can I call you Baba O?" No, you cannot call me Baba O. That's not my name. You can say Baba, but to say Baba O is to be disrespectful to that
Yeah.
lineage, to that purpose, to the things that I have to accomplish in this life. You know what I mean? So when somebody says
I
Ifa
agree.
Kemi, they're speaking of who you are. They're giving you respect, and they're also giving that Ifa respect that is inside of you. Like my Luas used to say, if your Ikini Fa is in the house and your house burns down, do you run in after the Ikini Fa? No, because Ifa is in me. You see what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, because you have the ceremony, right?
Right.
The initiation, yes.
Exactly. You went through the Igbo do. Receive
Mm-hmm.
that Itefa. Right? There's a reason why you went through these things. Your destiny was meant to go through these things, in particular, to help others. To be that leader of women, to do other things. It speaks volumes to who you are. And
For
that's
sure.
important. You know what I mean? That's really important. To not be stuck in, I don't want to, and I'm not trying to force you to say your name and to push your name out there. I'm just saying that when somebody says your name, it's really powerful, you know, um, because it is not just a average name. It's not, it doesn't just, Tom, Dick, and Jane. Those even have meanings in the context as at their root. But the majority of people have names that don't have any meaning. The name that you have, that's what I was talking to my daughter about. like her name is powerful because it speaks of her destiny, and no one can ever take away from you. That's your purpose in life. You know it immediately. So
Yeah.
but again, I'm not trying to beat you over the head to like, go change your name right now. No.
No.
But you know what I'm saying. So it's important because that in itself is a marker for you. Your name is your marker.
Yeah, that's who I am.
Hmm. Yep.
Like basically how IFA identifies me, attracting me.
Yep. Exactly. Ifa loves you, right? So
Hashem.
when you think about that, when you connect to that, like, what is Ifa? Ifa is a great body of wisdom. Ifa is the word of Olodumare, or the word of Almighty God, if you want to go there, right? So why wouldn't we want to exalt that name that we got in the grove, that we know, that people can say it? And every time they say it, you make sure that they say it correctly because that's who you are. And that can never be taken away, ever. The importance of it, of that ceremony, of what you went through, not everybody's gone through that ceremony and has understanding of it. Not everybody will be able to understand or build in the way that you can. That's why you can't connect to everybody in a relationship.
Yeah, it's been very difficult. It's been years, but it's been very difficult.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, if it's, yeah, I guess I'll just wait till the divine timing, you know?
Yeah. Thanks. Ifa's timing, huh?
Yep.
Ifa's timing and seeking, you know. Yeah. Yeah. That's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Wow.
Yeah, over here it's 3:54.
Oh wow. Okay. So you
Because
you're
I'm in Jersey. I'm
you
Eastern
deep
time.
you deep in, that's right. 3 hours ahead. You deep in the mix of stuff already. In the day.
I'm working too. I work till 9 in the morning.
Oh wow. Wow. He put in time too. Wow.
But I'm not even gonna complain because I'm very blessed. So
Right. That's good. That's good. That's good. But that's yeah. That's always a blessing there. Seek out E5. That's why I did this topic today too, understanding E5. Um because I think I did something similar to it before. I have to go back to it again. I think I did something similar to it before. Um in the same context though, really making sure that this is um certain things that are understood, so people won't get duped. So people won't get, um have to go through challenges that others have or that I have or whatever case may be, because it's important, because people seek it all the time but get duped all the time too by 419s, you know. Um, it is what it is. Yeah, but it is E5 for me. It is E5. Yeah. But yeah, now I appreciate you, Crystal, for coming up. I think I'm about to clock out in just a little bit.
alrighty.
Yeah, thank you as usual for showing your support, for coming in. Yep, I appreciate you.
Anytime, Baba.
Definitely. So I'm thank you all others too for coming in. Thank you for your likes, subscribe, shares. Because you could have been in many other places. So I appreciate you being here with me. Thank you for sharing your opinions. Thank you for being here and able to connect with me in a way that um, maybe wouldn't be able to connect with others in that way. So I appreciate you sharing that time, energy, and effort with me. Right. If you are seeking to have an Ifa divination, Ifa Abigba divination, because that's the primary tool that I use, is Ifa Abigba. then feel free to DM me or contact me through, because I think there's a phone icon that you can call me through there as well. But you can DM me, and then I can always I give a 13-point breakdown of what it is, what you seek to, what can you expect from having an IFA divination, specifically IFA a big bud divination. And then, herbs wise as well, I am a 10th generation herbalist. So if you do have herbal questions or anything like that, then you also can DM me for that as well. I don't know how long this TikTok thing is going to go. They say it's supposed to be shutting down, so I don't know if that's true or not. But if it is that, please feel free also to go to my profile and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I also put videos out there as well. And if that is true, I'm probably going to start to do more lives and things over there as well. I've been laxing on going over there just because I've been busy. But definitely feel free to contact me there. Any questions, comments, or anything like that before I get out of here, feel free to ask them. Be here for another maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to shut it down. So any quick questions before I get out of here? Anybody wants to ask about IFA or connecting to IFA, what that means? What exactly does how does that apply to your life as far as when getting a divination or in studying? And so for me, people who seek to study with me, they have to get a IFA divination, IFA Abigba divination first. That's a given. Because that is the process, so that I know exactly what it is that I'm dealing with, and then that specifically what's going on with your life right now and what things are going on. And then when can you begin that study, and so it's really important also in that pathway to seek or know what it is that you seek to accomplish with your life. So hopefully you got a lot of insight from this. I will be reposting this, bit by bit, little by little. Probably the highlights and then some of the clips. If I can get it over to my YouTube, then I'll definitely be uploading the full video over there. So there are a few full videos over there as well, on the lives and otherwise, about many different things. So if you have any further questions or any questions, I said about 10-15 minutes, but I think I may clock out earlier than that. So any questions, any comments, anything that anyone would like to engage with, ask questions about, or go deeper within the conversation. If you are here or you're just coming in, you want to ask a specific question about IFA, traditional IFA, because that's the lineage that I specifically come from, is traditional IFA. So there may be things that you maybe come from a different lineage, maybe even have a comment that you would like to talk about. You can also do those things. But I am coming from strictly from a traditional sense. So it is 1:00 and I am about to go. So thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the likes, subscribes, and follows. Definitely, if you feel like you want to continue this conversation or go deeper within it, please feel free to DM me or call me with from the profile, and we can go from there. Or email me. All right. Have a good one. Odabo.